Welcome. It is December the 2nd, 2024. Welcome to Scouching Live. I, of course, am Will Scouch. I'm joined today by our illustrious game tape host, Tony Ferrari. Tony, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing wonderful.
You're
Team
doing
Canada
wonderful.
rosters are out.
Yep.
Team USA rosters are out. Team Czechia rosters are out. That's all we need.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, that's the name of the game for tonight. We've got some rosters to talk about. Actually, I'm going to request. I'm also going to introduce our producer, AJ Jadero. AJ, I don't know if it's possible. Can you find the rosters and send it over to me? Because I don't know where to find it. Or Tony, whoever can do it first. Because that's the one roster I forgot to fetch. But anyway, welcome to the show. Yeah, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us. We're going to have some fun tonight. Tony is here, just, moral support, I guess you could say. No, but we've got plenty to discuss this evening. I will say, yes, I lost my train of thought immediately. So there's a great start. But anyway, welcome to the show. I guess we'll just jump right into it. We've already gotten the lists, the rosters of players for the Canadians, the Americans, and the Czechs. We're going to start in Canada. The Canadian roster. Oh, thank you, by the way. I don't know why I needed to thank you there. Anyway, we're start. Okay. Yeah. So the Canadian roster is now out. I've dumped it into my document here. If anyone's unaware, I'm sure you can Google it and find it quite easily. I believe it's on Hockey Canada's website right now. So overall, in a word, give me a word. What is your adjective for the Canadian camp roster that you see to this point?
Expected. That's
okay.
That's what I go with, because this is what Hockey Canada does. They overthink it. They don't take some of the more dynamic players, and they go with the Hockey Canada guys. They build 4 third lines if they could.
I mean, yeah. So my first thought is, it's like the longer we do this, the more and more apparent it becomes to me that a lot of teams and a lot of people who put teams together are very focused on like who plays what role. Like it seems like there's this thought of, oh, this guy's going to play on our 4th line and their job is X, right? Like I look at a Cole Baudouin, for example, and I'm like, that guy is going to be a 4th line center's 4th line center, right? Just go out there, eat a couple of minutes, grind the game down, crash and bang, do your job, and I feel like there's just a lot of that up and down the lineup. I mean, I also would say that this lineup, in a word, I guess I would say like, yeah, typical. Like I do think that it is kind of interesting that they're bringing some of these players along, like Luca Pinelli, Denver Barkey. I mean, Luca Pinelli's probably there because Dave Cameron's coaching.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's about time someone gave him a little bit of attention. And if it means it's his own head coach, I'm okay with it. I don't know if he's going to make the team, like, again, what role is he going to play on this team if he's not a top 6, goal scoring guy? I don't know. But do you have any, like, what is it that you like about this team? Like, it's not a bad hockey team, right? Must say it's not a bad hockey team, but like, what do you like about what is there?
I like their goaltending because they didn't really get too cute. At the end of the day, I think it's going to be Ratzlaff and Bjarnason, and both have played well this year. Both are, like, Ratzlaff was the 3rd goalie last year, so they've got some experience. Bjarnason's been really good this year. So in a weird way, I think Canada's goaltending is going to be okay, and that hasn't really always been the case in recent years at the World Juniors, especially. The defense is interesting. I think you have Dickinson and Bonk, and that'll probably be a pair because they have the familiarity of playing with each other. So that's an advantage that's built in. Tanner Molendyk's good. The rest of the defense that I look at, and I'm like, are they really going to rely on Caden Price and Harrison Brunicky to move the puck? Is Bo Aki going to actually make this team? Like, Bo Aki and Cam Allen, I was shocked to see kind of both of them on this camp roster because they both dealt with tons of injuries, especially Cam Allen over the last few years. And it's like, over guys like Zane Parekh, over guys like Carter Yakimchuk, who, listen, I'm not the biggest fan of either of those players. I think everyone knows that's read my work. I had them much lower than consensus, and I had them lower than where they went in the draft. But I figured they'd be there at least in the
Yeah.
camp roster. They don't have much puck moving on the back end, and that's the
Well,
big concern for me.
to
And then
me,
up,
that's typical. That's
yeah,
that's
but yeah,
typical, right?
exactly.
It's
It's
like
Hockey
Canada
Canada.
doesn't really see. It's like you get one or two. It's
Yeah,
like you get one or two defensemen who can play with the puck. Everyone else is shut down. Everyone else is big beef that can block play. The rest is just you can have fun, but the rest is just that. So anyway, I interrupted. Take it away with your forwards.
no, and I was going to say on that note, is this going to be the time where we finally get to see Sam Dickinson play the peak of Sam Dickinson hockey?
Yeah, the Sam McGilligan, I swear to God, I've seen it, style of hockey.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, it's entirely possible.
he'll have 2 weeks of hockey that's exceptional. Sam is going to come back on the show and be like,
Yeah.
I told you, I told
Yeah.
all of you.
I mean, shouting out my own content. Video Room, we have a Sam Dickinson related episode, and he does seem to be a little bit more assertive and all that, never in that area. But when he gets the wheels going, man, he can really go. So maybe this is the opportunity to do that for him. But anyway, the forward group, though, I mean, in my view, it's hard to make a Team Canada that isn't a medal favorite for this tournament. Like, it would be really difficult to, go and just be like, well, this team might. I mean, last year's team was kind of okay, but they were still a medal contender. But what are your thoughts? You were going to talk about the forwards a bit. Like, where do you come down on those guys?
Well, it's a good group. I think they're probably missing some high end talent, but for the most part, I think you talked about how Hockey Canada likes to go. This guy can play in this role, and this guy can play in this role, and I think that's why we see Porter Martone here over a guy like Michael Misa, because you can look at Porter Martone and go, he can play on your fourth line, he can play on your first line. I think the way he plays hockey is going to work regardless of where you put him in the lineup, and that's why he gets the opportunity at the camp roster over a guy like Michael Misa, who I think is more of that prototypical top six forward, a guy that's really smart, really kind of cerebral. But is he going to play over Callum Ritchie? Is he going to play over some of these other players like Easton Cowan and whatnot? So I think that's why you see him kind of miss out on this roster. But then you have guys on this roster that have a ton of fun to their game, and that's a Denver Barkey. That's a guy like Easton Cowan, Andrew Cristal, Riley Height. Like, I don't think all of them make the roster, but obviously Easton Cowan's going to be there. Denver Barkey was
though.
Oh, it'd be so fun.
The funniest team ever.
Denver Barkey was their last cut last year. Like, he was almost on the team.
And they could have used a guy like him, honestly.
He would have been fantastic for that team last year. That team last year was not fun to watch, and he would have made them a little funner. But the guy that I think obviously is going to get the most attention here is Gavin McKenna, the 2026 draft eligible kid, who's absolutely fantastic. He's leading the CHL in scoring, Michael Misa second, and he's done everything he possibly could in the WHL this season. He's been fantastic. He is slight. He can get pushed off the puck, and maybe Hockey Canada doesn't love that, but every time this guy's put on a Team Canada sweater, he's been one of the best players on the team. So everything I'm hearing, everything I've been told by everyone that's in the know is Gavin McKenna's on this team. That's not really a question. Where he plays in this lineup would be the interesting part. I think he probably plays in the top half, and I think he's going to be really good.
I mean, I think he's a player who you can also, give a bit of the keys to the Ferrari on a little bit, like give him sort of that winger push offensively kind of job. So I think that would help. I do. Yeah. So like on the topic of sort of who was left home, I do think that based on the way that this show and this channel has felt about a lot of the players that people have said were snubbed, we haven't been the biggest fans of them. But even I am surprised at a lot of this. Like I am, like I what I did before the show today was I went through the roster of like, who would I take off instead and put the guys who were quote unquote snubbed on instead of, right? So like I think of Michael Misa going onto the team. Like I've never been a huge Matthew Wood guy, and I feel like they could play similar roles. Good puck touch players, simple but effective offense. Matt Wood has a pretty good shot, but so does Michael Misa. I think Michael Misa has better pace in his game, better defensive play. TJ Gillen not even getting a camp invite was a little nutty to me. I feel like him instead of a Tanner Howe, I think is an upgrade on that style of player. I mean, I just finished a video room recording on Zane Parekh the other day. He had a great game there, and every time I've seen him this year, Yeah, he's still pretty similar, in terms of the ups and the downs, but holy smokes, the ups are incredible. Like, you want to talk about a guy who, if I'm coaching against the Canadian team this winter, I'm going, oh my god, they didn't take Zane Parekh. Like, their power play, who's their power play quarterback, right? Sam Dickinson? Fine, sure,
Yeah.
right? Like, I could see how that's a benefit, but replace Sam Dickinson with Zane Parekh as a power play guy at the World Juniors. You're done. Like, that's what he does. So not taking him and going for guys like Akey and Andrew Gibson and all that stuff, it's a little bit strange to me. And even Andrew Gibson, right? He's fine at being that. He's the Noah Warren of this year's team, right? But why? Like, again, we're not huge fans of Carter Yakimchuk, but I could see Carter Yakimchuk being a bit of a better version of him, where I'm like, yeah, I would rather probably if you want that type of a player, then why not? I mean, again, like, if I lean into my cynicism and my cynical side, I go, well, maybe I can see why Hockey Canada would leave these guys at home. I think Hockey Canada does a lot of like risk mitigation. It's like, well, we know that these players have some level of risk to them, so let's avoid that by taking someone less exciting and round out the roster that way. Beckett Seneca is a name that we haven't talked about either yet. He was not even invited to camp, the recent 3rd overall selection. I also just did a video room on him. I thought he was kind of okay. I don't know. What are your thoughts on? Have you seen much of Beckett Seneca this season with Oshawa?
Yeah, I think a lot of what's happening right now with Beckett Seneca is, I think, a lot of what people like yourself and me were concerned about last year when he was starting to make that rise to that top 3 pick. I don't know if the flash that we saw at the end of last year was exactly what he was. I think that was maybe a bit of regression from the start of the season where he wasn't really doing a whole lot. And then his points started to fall, and then they started to fall in bunches. And that's when people started to really gain traction on him towards the end of the season. And It was really funny because I think you and I both mentioned it on a show last year, late in the year as we lead up to the draft. Why is he growing? Like, why is he going so high up the board so fast after games are done being played? And there was obviously that playoff run where he helped Oshawa go deep and whatnot, but it was really funny how after games were done, that's when his rise really started to skyrocket. So
yeah,
he's an interesting guy because I think he has been good, but has he been great? Not really. But I thought he was going to be a guy that was at least named to the camp roster because he was that 3rd overall pick. But you talk about the 3rd overall pick. Well, you look up and down this team, and the top 10 picks from last year, none of them are basically there except for Berkeley Catton. Macklin Celebrini is obviously not there because he's in the NHL. Berkeley Catton is the only top 10 pick from Canada that's on this roster. Iginla's not there. Seneca's not there. Yakimchuk and Parekh, all of them aren't there. So it's interesting because you have guys like Cole Bodwin, you have guys like Harrison Brunicky, who are later round picks, 2nd, 3rd round guys that are there. Tanner Howe, same thing. Hockey Canada is clearly going for their version of their guy, but it's funny the talent they leave off because maybe they want to mitigate some of that risk. But the one guy I did want to bring up on the back end that we kind of skirted over is Matthew Schaefer. Do you think he has a realistic shot? Because we talked about who's going to be the puck moving guy, who's going to be the power play quarterback. Matthew Schaefer can probably be that guy. And God. I know the hype of everything from the NHL or CHL USNTDP games had him going 1st overall. And maybe we all need to pump our brakes a little bit on that. But he was really good, and he has been really good this season.
Yeah. I mean, it's possible. There's nothing that says it's not possible. They value his potential impact on the team more than guys like Parekh and Yakimchuk and all those guys. I mean, based on what I've seen of him as a player, I don't know. It might be a little bit. I also wouldn't be able to recall the last time Canada took 3 non-drafted players to this tournament, like players who aren't even eligible to be drafted yet, right? And that would have been, and if that's the way we think it's going to go, Martone, McKenna, and maybe Schaefer. It just doesn't seem like something they do a whole lot. And I feel like there's a job opening for him. Like, would I take him on the team over a Bo Akey, for example, if I want an offensive defenseman? Probably, I guess. But Akey is a pretty mobile guy and a really good skater and can, get around really well and move the puck okay himself, but he's not really Matthew Schaefer's ability. So I don't know. We'll see. It's going to be very interesting to see how this team shakes out. I'm sure it'll make some people unhappy because it never does every year. But like, I mean, what I did was kind of went ahead and made my own dream team, so to speak. And it is interesting, before I get into that, you mentioned that the only players in the top 10, I mean, outside of Sam Dickinson, who we've talked about a lot, the only other one in the top 10 who's here is Berkeley Catton, which I hope he makes the team, because that's another thing I felt like Canada didn't really have a whole lot of depth regarding last year, where it was that fast up the middle, open ice, puck moving player. They kind of lacked that. It just seemed very like they were a chip and chase team, simple but effective, and it kind of burned them. I mean, I guess they should have won that game against the Czech Republic there. That was a bit of a nail biter. But anyway, I just went ahead and put together a if I had my way with things. I mean, I feel like a top unit of Raykop, Ritchie, and Nadeau makes sense. Crystal, Hage, Seneca probably would be another group that I'd bring. I just say what you will about Seneca, but having Andrew Crystal working give and goes with Seneca and working with him in the offensive zone, I think would work just fine. Iginla, Kat, and Lachenko, all the 2024 guys together, I think you've got smarts and physicality and skating ability there. And then McKenna, Misa, Martone on your bottom line, just a bunch of kids, and just see what happens. I mean, you don't have it's the IIHF tournament, right? You can play 7 minutes and get away with it. And I feel like those guys would be a positive impact if they line matched pretty well, with like guys like Barkey and Jaeger as spares, right? Guys who can move up and down the lineup, do a whole bunch of different stuff. And then on the back end, I put Bonk and Dickinson, because I feel like those guys are going to play together, because they always have or a lot of the time they are this season. Molendijk and Perek, I don't think I'd put them together, but those two, being the skatey boys who can play on the power play. Sawyer Minio, I think, deserves a look on this team. I think he's been just rock solid every time I've seen Seattle this year. I probably would put Carter Yakimchuk on the team, probably, just as a defensive stopper. Just that's what I would tell him to do. Just be like, you can move the puck here and there, but like your job is to play physical. That's your job. The name that I was also kind of curious about is maybe getting some attention is Terrence Smith. I think he's had a really good year this season with Everett, but again, like, you can only bring so much fun to camp, right? There's only so much skill you can bring to camp. So I don't know. Is there anyone sort of off the beaten path that you probably would have gone to bat for in this group that we kind of haven't really mentioned yet?
Well, considering all of the defensive, boring guys they brought, like, instead of an Andrew Gibson, why not bring a Ben Danford? A guy that I think is more mobile, a little smarter, a little bit more capable with the puck. Honestly, I think just he's a better version of what Andrew Gibson is and what they're going to want Andrew Gibson to do. Harrison Brunicky is an interesting player on this team. If he makes it, I'm really interested to see how they use him and what they want him to do, because the kid can absolutely skate. He's got the ability to move the puck at times, but I don't know where he fits in on this roster. I don't know. Like, I feel like if he is on this team, he's going to be the guy that I go, what do you do here?
Yeah,
he doesn't really feel a need for this team, but it's an interesting group. Up front, I know he's young. I know there's not necessarily a top 6 role for him, but Michael Misa is second in CHL scoring. He leads all CHLers in goals. Are you telling me you couldn't use him over a guy like Ethan Gauthier? You couldn't use him over a guy like Matthew Catafort? And they're fine players. But at the end of the day, I think Michael Misa is currently a better player than maybe 7 or 8 of these forwards, maybe 9. But he's young. They have so many young players already, as you mentioned, with McKenna and Martone. And Martone's going to play in that. He can play that fourth line role and just be a gritty, grindy, play it 9 minutes a night and maybe make something happen on the power play or something. It'll be interesting to do what he does. But I get why he's not there, but I really it just rubs me the wrong way that Michael Meese is not on this team.
I do wonder, and I feel like this is kind of a elephant in the room, sort of, but maybe not as big as an elephant, but there's an animal in the room that you mentioned, the only 2 guys from the Quebec League that are on the camp roster. So part of me is going, well, the CHL not sending, or the, Hockey Canada not sending anybody from Quebec would not be the best look. And so I guess they maybe sidelined some WHL spots for more, or sideline some guys from the dub or OHL, and maybe just put 2 Quebec guys on there, because you and I both have been watching Matthew Cataford and Ethan Gauthier for years now. I don't like. Are you telling me like T. Ginla doesn't deserve a look even on a camp roster? I don't know what to say about that. That's a tricky one, but if you say it as if it's like, well, you got to bring some players from the Quebec League, because then, okay, fair enough. We'll see where that goes.
I look at this roster, and if they're forcing themselves to bring a QMJHL player, I don't necessarily think these are the 2 guys I would bring, but both of them have been Hockey Canada guys, especially Gauthier, in the past. Yep. So if Gauthier ends up being the 13th forward, sure, I guess, but I feel like you could make a better use of that spot. Like, Gauthier had that big Holinka last year, and I say big relatively, but he got a lot of eyes. He scored some goals, and everyone was like, oh, look at this kid. And then he didn't really do anything all season. Mm-hmm. So I think it goes back to the QMJHL has fallen far behind everyone. And I've had this spiel on the show before, but we're seeing it with the Hockey Canada rosters. We're seeing it with different all-star games, the CHL USA game the other last week that you and I were in attendance for. There was only a couple Q guys. Like, at the end of the day, you have to bring the best players. And unfortunately, right now, that's not the guys from the Q.
Right. I mean, yeah. I mean, it's unfortunate, but, I do think that in the future, that's going to be a bit better. There are guys like, who's the defenseman? Xavier Villeneuve is a guy who I love playing in Quebec. I think Desnoyers has been quite good this year. Maybe I have him lower than most people, but I still like him as a player.
Yep.
And like Bill Zonin, I think. I don't know. Like, I feel like Bill Zonin could be a guy that's a World Junior guy next year. We'll see. I don't know. But the point is, it's an interesting group of players that they're bringing, and it always is every single year, right? And generally, the team always looks good, right? Every single year, the Canadian team goes to this tournament and they look great. I still believe that this is a team that on raw talent, Canada should be dominant every year, but they kind of find ways to make themselves almost like talk themselves into a corner of like, well, we have to have this and we have to have this and we can't take too much of this because then we don't have enough of this. And it's like, well, you end up with Brown, right? As a team identity, right? You would just end up with this physical chip and chase style of play that is just, and I feel like there are games where Canada just gets countered by, like, I'm sure you remember the era when the US had those rosters of just fast and skilled and intense offensive teams. And every single time they played Canada, it was like they should win those games. The US should be winning those games, and Canada just kind of doesn't have an answer for it. I also wonder what the impact of a team like Russia would be. I feel like the Russian team in this tournament, they were always fast and fun. I feel like the reason why Canada always had trouble with the Russians is they didn't care if they allowed 50 shots if they're going to get 60, right? Like, the Russians kind of just play this offensive style that is just, you can never count them out. And I think Canada had a lot of the time trouble with that. I saw it firsthand, and I'm traumatized from that experience in Buffalo. But in any case, I still think it's a really good team, right? Like, I don't think either of us are saying it's a bad group of players. It's going to fit what Team Canada kind of always has been, but it's always the same story every year. I feel like they did leave a little bit more talent on the table this year than they did last year. Maybe I'm wrong on that. I have to go back and look, but I remember last year looking at the team and going, yeah, I mean, sure, I get it. This year I'm going, whoa, like, you left a lot of guys at home.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure exactly what the goal is there, because like you said, there are guys on this roster where you go, I feel like there are players out there that are upgrades on existing players already there. They're the same vibe, but like more elevated and higher end.
And I think the thing too to remember with Team Canada's roster, and this is a common occurrence, it seems, across every year at the World Juniors, is there's a couple of guys they're just not going to get. Macklin Celebrini, no chance they're getting this guy. Connor Bedard is still eligible for the World Juniors this year.
Zach Benson is another
Zach
one.
Benson is still eligible. Like, there's just guys that they're not getting. Adam Fantilli, right? Like, so like, I think the reality is there's just some good players you're not going to get. But Canada, and I think you and I have talked about this privately, they fall into gold medals all the time because they can, the depth of talent that Canada has, they can make mistakes on their roster building and still come out with a pretty good roster. And that's what's going to happen this year. They're going to be a good team.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're necessarily the favorites, but they're going to be one of the most dangerous teams, as always. It's going to be interesting to see how they assemble this group, which of these guys actually makes the roster, which guys come off. Like, does a Bradley Nadeau come into this roster off a decent run recently in the AHL and really assert himself? Like, it's going to be interesting because there are guys in this roster where you could build out a pretty lethal top 6, even top 9, and then have that fourth line of just Team Canada scumbags. Like
right.
Who would be shocked if Luca Pinelli is at this tournament playing on the fourth line and leading the tournament in penalty minutes because he's just kind of that guy? I watched him recently in a game against Windsor, and the dude literally, like, he hammered a guy from behind, complained to the ref that he didn't hit the guy, and as the guy was getting up, he just hammered him down again in front of the ref. He's like, if I'm getting my 2 minutes, I'm going to take a chunk of flesh with me. Like, Team Canada loves that guy on the fourth line. I don't know if Pinelli's necessarily that guy, but
right,
it'll be interesting. They always seem to find penalty trouble at tournaments like this.
You can give me Luca Pinelli on the bottom line with Denver Barkey and Cole Baudouin and I think that would be a fourth line where I'm going, yeah, I mean, they can score. These guys can score, but they're gonna make you want to rip your hair out. Like, they're gonna and it would be just the best. I mean, I don't know. I will say, before we move on, I do want to talk about the US roster and the Czech roster. You mentioned Cam Allen a long time ago. I look at Cam Allen and I agree, him being on this team is a bit of a surprise, but I've seen Guelph a couple of times this year. I've watched a couple of their games, and Cam Allen actually doesn't look that, like, ineffective. He's actually been pretty good on a team that hasn't been amazing. So I'm not so surprised, based on what I've seen, that he is there. But again, over some of the other names they didn't bring, I am surprised. But he is one that I think surprised me when I saw him. He was one of those guys where, when I go to a game, I don't really think about the players themselves on the ice. I just kind of look at what's happening and go, okay, this guy made a play. This guy, who's this? And I found myself jotting stuff down about Cam Allen a lot more than I expected in Guelph. And I feel like, maybe there's something there. But so, and I've seen people kind of memeing on that a little bit, going, I don't know about Cam Allen being a thing. And I'm like, well, he's let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater on that. Maybe there's something there. But let's move on to the Americans. The Americans also put out their roster. Again, you can find it on the internet and many, many places. But what are your thoughts on this American roster, looking at it top down? And maybe how does it stack up to the Canadian roster? So it looks like there are about 4 or 5 names they have to cut, something like that, between now and the World Juniors.
Yeah, so it's interesting. The IIHF actually last summer, I believe, made a change for the roster limits for any major tournament, including the World Juniors. Teams can now bring a roster of 25 players. Canada never does that. Canada won't do that this tournament. They're at home. They'll say, we'll just bring a guy. Right. But teams like the US and other teams coming in from Europe will probably bring 25 players. So this 28-man roster means that the US is only going to have to cut 1 defenseman and 2 forwards, if I'm not mistaken. So this is pretty close to what you're going to see from the US. With that being said, if Will Smith does get loaned out, which as of a couple weeks ago was a much higher chance than it is now. I wrote something about it on the Hockey News, and at the time I was being told, like, hey, there's a pretty good chance that Mike Greer goes, get away from the losing, get into an environment where you can go dominate, win, get your game back on track, gain some confidence, and just escape the role of the San Jose Sharks season? Well, since Celebrini's come back specifically, Smith being slotted down on the second line is more appropriate for him. He's
Right.
excelling a lot more. He's looking good, and that team is winning a lot more. After starting 0-9, I think they're 9-6-2 or something like that. So they've been pretty good lately. So I don't think the chance of Smith going and getting loaned is quite as big. But if he does, then they have to cut one extra forward. Oh no, I'm sorry, Chris Pelosi or someone like that's going to not make the roster, but that's okay because I think this is a really good roster. I look at this team and I go, there's a solid defense group. There may not be a star or a driver. There's no Cole Hudson or a Luke Hughes. Zeke Williams pretty close, but I don't know if he's those guys at the junior level. I think he's a little bit more well-rounded maybe, but then you have guys like Drew Fortescue. I think EJ Emery and Cole Hudson are going to be reunited on the second pair. And then you have a group of guys who are going to fight it out for the third pair. Is a guy like Adam Kleber, who I'm a big fan of, going to be the guy that kind of anchors that third line, their third pairing. Paul Fisher, even a guy like Colin Ralph, who some people love because you can't teach 6'4", and he could be a guy that is going to be on this roster. So I think when you look at the defense specifically, they've got a good, solid group. Maybe not the name value you'd want to see, and certainly not the name value that Canada has.
Right.
But I look at the defenseman and I go, okay, is Logan Hensler the one cut? Because I don't really know. You and I were talking about him earlier today.
Yeah.
I don't know what to do with him right now for the draft. So why are they bringing him? If that's going to be the case, if they have to cut one guy, Aaron Minetian was the extra last year. He might end up being the extra again this year. Up front, they've got a good group, like a good, solid group. I really like the Leonard and Gabe Perreault combination. If Will Smith comes back, they get their center from the last 3 years. If he doesn't, then they get their center from this year in James Haggins.
Yeah.
So they're kind of set up on the top line pretty well. Oliver Moore, one of our favorites, is going to be on their second or third line at center. Teddy Stieg is going to be up there. Trevor Connolly probably makes this roster as just an offensive dynamo. They're not going to ask him to play any defense at all. It's a good roster. I think it falls off a bit towards the back end, but it's okay because, man, that goaltending is with Trey Augustine is going to be
that's the thing.
Unreal.
Yeah. All three of their goaltenders have been really good this year, right? You might look at Sam Hillebrand and see an .899 save percentage, but he's facing like 38 or 40 shots a night in Barrie. Like, he's having a bad time there and he's doing quite well, but Augustine is going to be probably the guy, and rightfully so. He's excellent. He's been great this year. And if it's either Slakinski or Hillebrand backing him up, both of those guys have been really, really good. So at the end of the day, I agree largely on the U.S. team. I think they're going to be a lot of fun. Yeah. I think I still look at the Canadian roster and go, I give the edge a little bit to them. But I do think that there's a lot of really interesting bits and pieces here on the U.S. team. So you've got obviously Haggins, Perreault, Yzerman, Leonard, Connolly, just a bunch of just really good players who can go with anybody out there, right? Booyam and Hudson, I think both would be really good dynamic guys on the team. I think Hensler I might keep on the team, especially if the alternative is like a Colin Ralph or something. I mean, Ralph, I've never really been a huge fan of, but Hensler, I think, has had some moments where I'm going, okay, yeah. Like, people are talking about like Blake Fiddler being on the roster, and I don't know if he's going to make it, but I mean, again, it's like if a guy like Emery and Fortescue are there and returnees like Minetian are going, I think that, like, are you going to cut Booyam or Hudson? Probably not. Are you going to cut a Paul Fisher, who's more of a stable defensive guy, who's been a little more experienced? Maybe, but at that point you can kind of take it or leave it. But the States look to me like a pretty good team. There have been better American rosters in the past, but they're going to be good. Like even Kerry Tarrant's down the lineup, right in the bottom six. He's a returnee from last year. Always a fun player to watch, and he's going to help sort of anchor things down there as well. So interesting stuff, I think, on that U.S. team. But I mean, I guess we could take a quick look as well at the Czechs. They put out their, I think this is their final roster, if I'm not mistaken. I think this is everybody. They've got 8 defensemen here. and 14 forwards. So yeah, this looks like their full roster. I mean, I think that this team looks decent. Like the Czech team, like I wouldn't laugh at them at all. A lot of their players are at least some level of like a needle mover, right? Adam Dzeko having a really good year. Miroslav Holinka's a skilled, fun player to watch. Adam Novotny is a guy who I think people are going to be like, oh, this guy is for real because he's next year's draft, but he's an 07, and I think he's quite a talented player. Peter Sikora is a good one from last year as well. Edward Shala is probably going to be the guy there. I mean, I'm not the biggest Edward Shala guy, and I know that there's a lot of people who also are not, but I feel like at this level for his age, he's going to be pretty darn good. Stantzel, I mean, AJ, our boy, Adam Zidlichky, he's on the roster.
Let's go.
So, yeah, so Adam Zidlichky is going to run around like a chicken with his head cut off, hitting everything that moves, doing everything but score,
almost
even though he's
scoring,
scoring decently.
Almost scoring.
Yeah, he's going to almost score all night.
You're gonna make this noise. Oh.
Yeah.
That's what it's going to sound like the entire time.
Yeah.
Play a drinking game and see how many times that happens.
Yeah. There was a defenseman that they left off the roster that I was a little bit surprised about.
Was it Radim Murtka?
Yeah. No. I'll have to remind myself by scrolling back in my little thing here.
Oh, Badinka?
Yeah, Badinka's the one. That's the one. So no Dominic Badinka this year for the Czechs. But the defense group still looks decent. Thomas Galvis gets another crack at showing himself in front of NHL scouts. Jakob Fippiger was pretty decent last season. I believe he was there. I could be wrong. I might be thinking of the under 18s. But like Wojtek Port is a decent player. Mateo Kochi is also kind of decent. But Badinka, I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, because talent-wise, he deserves to be there for sure.
Yeah, he's probably among the best players that would have been on this defense group, I think. But he's played a bunch of SHL games this year. Yeah. There's no reason he's not on this team aside from maybe politics, but I really don't know what the issue is there. Up front, Adam Benak is a reserve. Radim Murtka is a reserve on the back end. So if someone when it's hurt, maybe they come. But yeah, there's a solid group here for the Czechs. And I think after winning bronze last year, if I'm not mistaken, like there's a pretty good chance they're competing for a medal again this year.
Yeah, I agree. I think, and also the Czechs are a team that every single year they're like the new Finns, right? They show up, they've got a decent team with a bunch of guys who are pretty decent at that level, and they grind out wins. They find a way to, counterattack well, take, like we saw it against Canada last year. It seemed like they were getting outshot 4-1, but every time Canada made a mistake, they'd come the other way, get a scoring chance, and put one in. And it's like that like they grind you down, they play hard, they play selfless hockey, and it's a really interesting thing to watch. So I'm excited about that Czech team, to be perfectly honest. I think that they might overperform what people are expecting, and we'll have to see. So
I think a large part of that too is just no one sees the Czech guys. At the end of the day, no one's watching any of these guys except for losers like you and I who are bored at 3 a.m. and we're watching them on a Tuesday night. But a lot of the CHL guys, a lot of the USHL guys, college guys, they get their highlights posted all the time. They get their games put on TSN once in a while. Like, people are seeing some of these guys. Yeah. They're seeing them at showcase events like the USA and TDP games or the CHL USA games. These Czech guys, they just go to these Four Nation tournaments, get some chemistry. They play together a lot. Like you said, they're kind of like the new Finns because, spoiler alert, Finland sucks.
Not the hockey team, the country.
Yes, the hockey, the Finland, the country is wonderful.
Yeah,
I know lots of Finns I quite enjoy as people. The hockey team, at least this age group, this year and the next couple, not great. So it's going to be interesting to see Czechia kind of take their new role as that feisty team that maybe kind of supplants one of the more favorite teams like Canada, Sweden, USA.
Tony, don't you have beef with like some Finland Like, or not beef, but like, didn't they call you out? Once,
Finland media? Yeah, they hate
Finland
me.
media. Yeah.
Finland media hates me because I made fun of the flying V breakout that they do.
You mean the
And
flying I-beam?
Flying V would be generous because that means
Yeah.
one of the players is ahead of the rest.
Right.
I
Flat
tweeted out
line.
I forget who. I think I was watching Otto Koivu, who was drafted to the Montreal Canadiens.
Yes. Yeah.
Nepotism.
I remember this.
But I tweeted out a video of him playing and his team waited till everyone got below their own goal line and then worked up ice together in one straight line. And I was like, all I said was like the beautiful game or something like that. And like the biggest Finnish sports website posted, and they're like, Hockey Canada writer Tony Ferrari, or Hockey News writer Tony Ferrari hates Finland. And I was like, I don't. But I was a big fan of Brad Lambert. Love that guy. You guys seem to hate him, but I love him.
Well, it's because he's Canadian, right?
Right.
He's half Canadian.
Nobody named Brad is good at anything.
You can't take the Canada out of the boy or whatever.
It's true. Tony, for this Finnish team, now that we're talking about Finland a little bit, do you how many points do you think Topias Heinenen's going to score? Because he had 6 points in 2 games later last week on a 4-game point streak. Do you think he's going to score 67 points and in 5 games and find his way onto NHL draft lists for real, or is he still too small?
Well, last year he had 3 points in 6 games in U20 action. He wasn't on the World Junior team. This year, I think he's at least a point a game player for the World Junior team because someone has to score, and he seems to be one of the very few Finns able to do so. He's going to be on my draft list. I'm sure he'll be higher on your draft list. Will he be on NHL team's draft list? That's the question.
Right.
Maybe someone takes him late because now he's matured and now he's a man and now he knows how to play hockey the right way or whatever stupid thing they're going to say to justify drafting him at 19 instead of 18. But we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that they're going to have a decent team, Finland, to be fair. Like, Haminaho's not eligible, but Kumpulainen, Haltonen, Hellenius, I assume, will be there. Hininen is a good player. I think Jesse Kieskinen is still eligible, and he's been decent as well. I mean, but it's not flattering. Julius Miettinen, unfortunately, no Jesse Pulkkinen this year. Ottos Koivu will be there.
Who's the new Jesse Pulkkinen of this year? That's what I want to know.
Ooh, Simon Wang.
Simon Wang.
Yeah, Simon Wang, maybe. I like big, lanky guy. You don't really know what to do with him, but full send once in a while, and you go, whoa, that was fun.
Just vibing out there.
Yeah, just vibing out there. I mean, watching Jesse Pulkkinen last year was so much fun. I loved watching him there. But yeah, I do just to go back to the initial conversation topic, I do like that check roster. And also to build off of your point about big losers like us up at 2 a.m. watching hockey. I was up at 2 a.m. last night watching Minnesota high school hockey, so that's where I was. I guess that's an upgrade over the other day when I was up until 2 a.m. watching Chinese hockey players from last season. But you know, that was I was a little off the wagon there.
Just making sure you don't miss anyone for the draft. I respect
exactly. Yeah, Jung Kun Sun, 7th round pick. That's gonna happen. Since we were together last week, believe it or not, Tony and I actually went to a hockey arena and we sat together temporarily at the Canada Life Place, not the Budweiser Gardens or whatever. I did want to pick your brain a little bit because we kind of went over that series last week during the shows or the show on Thursday, but you were there with me, at least for London. I was there on my own in Oshawa, but what was your takeaway from those games? And I'm curious of if there's anyone that that sort of stuck out to you that maybe you didn't expect, or or something like that. What was your takeaway, and just maybe provide some musings about your experience last week.
It's a fun series. I wish they started doing it in a year that wasn't this year for the NTDP group, because LJ Mooney's one of their better players, and the guy was playing on one knee.
Yes.
That was very evident. It was his
God
first
bless
game.
him.
Yeah, it was his first game back after quite a lengthy injury layoff, and we saw him warming up and wrapping up his sticks and stuff and taping his sticks, and his knee was taped up and wrapped up, and he was limping around on it, and he looked like it on the ice.
Yep.
That US team was missing some juice. I think Jack Murtagh was a guy that certainly stood out to me on that US team. Brings a little bit of power, just plays a north-south game. Wasn't really overly impressive because no one on that US team was overly impressive, but he seemed to be the only guy that was consistently creating anything for that US team. So he stood out for me on that side of things. On the Canadian CHL side of things, I thought Blake Fiddler, actually, we spoke about him with the US roster. I thought he was really solid. Like the second game I watched at home on TV, because Osh was a bit of a further drive for me than
A
London
little.
is.
I think that's forgivable.
Yeah. So I was home watching that one on TV. And the one thing I noticed about Fiddler was there was these little C cuts he was making to evade traffic and evade forecheckers. He does these little things. He's not this fantastic puck mover or like some dynamic defenseman, certainly not a dynamic skater, but he moves well. He understands how to evade pressure and escape a forecheck. And I thought he did a really good job of showcasing that in an underrated role in that game. I think obviously Matthew Schaefer was stealing a lot of the headlines on the back end, and Kayshawn Aitchison was just beating the hell out of everybody he could.
Yes, he was.
That dude, he played some. I'm surprised he's not on that Team Canada roster because he was just beating people up.
He will be next year, though. 100% he'll be on the team next year because they won't be able to help themselves.
Yeah, the game we were at together, I think it was the first period. Right as the period's kind of coming to an end, he just blows a dude up who did not have the puck for no reason. Just annihilated him.
Yep.
Started a scrum, started a fight, and then he just kept doing it. And
yep.
Yeah, he got a few penalties, but you can only penalize him so much, I guess. So he was getting away with it as well. And not necessarily my brand of hockey, but NHL guys, from what I've been told from people I've spoken to, absolutely love that kid.
Yeah.
So expect him to be drafted like 26th overall. As for the forward group, there was a lot of guys that looked decent. I thought Cam Schmidt was absolutely fantastic. I think it was the second game he had 12 shots on goal or something silly like that. Like just ridiculous.
Yeah,
just dudes firing everything at the net.
Yeah.
But it was a fun event. I thought Lyndon Lajkovic was really good. I thought he was he has the first goal in the series in the first game. I thought he was good all night. He really good off puck, really smart positioning. I really liked his game as well. In goal, you had Ivan Kovic and Ravensburgen faced 20 shots combined between the two games, so you can't really take much from them. Caleb Denoyer, I thought maybe looked the best I've seen Caleb Denoyer look this year, and it was because you took so much off his plate playing with the guys that he was playing with in Misa and Martone. So I think for me, at least, it gave me that, oh, this is what he's going to be at the next level. Like he's not going to be a guy that's asked to do a whole lot. And he is sometimes in Moncton in the queue. So I think I kind of changed the way I look at him. It was an interesting event though. Who's a couple guys that stood out to you?
I mean, everybody was talking about Matthew Schaefer. That's a guy who I think, stuck out, but even though I'm not like as much on the hype train as I think a lot of people who were there became. But yeah, I mean, I'm trying to remember off the top of my head because I don't have my notes in front of me because I am unprepared. But but I mean, I feel like you're right on Caleb Denoyer. I feel like I saw him and Brady Martin as well were two guys where I'm going, all right, I see what their job is now a lot better than what I thought coming in. Ben Kindle, I went in expecting him. I went in expecting Ben Kindle to be quite good and like surprisingly good, but I came away going, okay, he was awesome. Like he he sprung Lyndon Lakovic on that breakaway for the first goal in the game one, I believe it was. And then I think he sprung him again later in the game, almost sprung another one in game two. Like he just, the way he sees the ice and just firing passes around the ice, it just went, yeah, I could see myself drafting this kid because he's a lot of fun to watch. And I thought he played really, really well. I definitely understand a lot more about what makes Kashan Aitchison really appealing. He's a guy who I think, it's like I can't devalue him too much because he will bring you things in an NHL game that NHL teams need and want. Even if it's not the most unbelievably talented thing, it's important. His job will be important in terms of, being an evil person on a hockey rink, because that's what he did. I do hope they do it again. I really hope they do it again because, I don't think the U.S. is going to stay this quiet relative to Canada. Canada's not quieting down. The 2008s in Canada look really good. I know there's like a few 2010s that people are excited about, but 2008, at least you can tell, is quite a good year for Canada. And the NTDP next year, I feel like won't be incredible. We'll see, but I'm not counting. I'm not too hopeful. But yeah, I thought it was a really, really good pair of games. It was very interesting to see all those players on the same ice surface and what they could do together. I thought Michael Misa quietly was very effective. I thought he was a guy who some people were a little bit down on coming out of those games, and I kind of went, well, not really. I think he was quite good. Like I thought he was maybe not a dominant player out there, but he was pretty good, like really, really effective. And I feel like he's just one of those guys who, like, the name that keeps popping up in my head over and over and over again is John Tavares, where it's like if you watch John Tavares in isolation for like 15 straight minutes, and AJ, you can feel free to correct me, but he's a guy where you go, why was this guy ever a 40+ goal scorer? Like, how did this guy score 90 points or 100 points? Like, how did that happen ever? But then you pay more attention and like look a little more and watch him play, and you go, oh, like, I kind of see how this happens. It's just like things just happen to go his way at such a staggeringly high rate that it's he just scored a goal.
Excellent.
He does the right things and good things happen to him at a staggeringly high rate, to the point where you're like, well, it can't just be luck. It can't just be like him just getting lucky all the time. He just knows how to play the game really, really well, and everything he does he's King Midas basically. So that's a guy that I also thought was quite good at that tournament.
I agree.
Pair of games.
I agree with your Tavares analogy, because I think I've even brought it up before, where it's just like he's just really smart, picks his spots well, and puts the puck in the back of the net. And I think that's what Michael Mies is going to do. I don't think he'll I think John Tavares was an incredible player at one point because the pace of the NHL was much lower. But I still think there is going to be, like, if he gets put on a team with a bunch of incredible players, let's say, he could be the John Tavares of the core four of that group.
Sure. And I totally could get with that. I totally get it. So, Tony, let's turn it over to you. Total blank slate. Tony blank slate time. What you've been doing, obviously, I hope you've been doing work, taking a look at the 2025 draft guys. No.
Yeah, they all suck.
Right.
I moved on to 2026.
Oh, okay. I'm right there with you, son. I'm right there with you. But I believe that we have it scheduled that, is it 2 weeks today? We're doing our ranking show for a Christmas present. So Tony will be back in 2 weeks to cover our first iteration of rankings. I think you already put one out. No, you didn't. Okay, so both of us
never put one out until Christmas.
Right. Okay, good boy.
Preseason rankings are silly.
Yes, they are. I think back to where I was on certain players in August when I was watching guys before the season, and I'm going, let's not go there. Let's not think about that.
Well, here's a quick aside. Here's my problem with a ranking at the beginning of October. The NCAA, like, the best player in this draft coming into the year was not playing. He was not playing hockey. How are we ranking a full draft class when you have 3 or 4 games of these guys, a Holinka tournament that was a jumbled mess as always, and your best player not playing. I feel like we have to wait. My rule of thumb has always been put one out right before the World Juniors to kind of avoid the World Junior glazing that everything that gets put on everything, and then move on to pre U18s, and then one at the final end of the year. Monthly updates are nice. It's good for your subscribers when they can look at your rankings as they develop throughout the year. But for the most part, like I just don't see the value in an October ranking aside from hashtag content, because that's the business we're all in.
It is.
That's why we did a preliminary one, so we would get, and it was a really successful stream.
That's
true. We have to make money somehow.
You do. And
yes,
if you asked me, I would have told you the names on the list, but I'm not
Yes.
publishing anything in depth because that's why. But yeah, 2 weeks from now, my first rankings of the year will be out on the Hockey News, and we're coming here to compare and contrast, because I think, as you and I have discussed throughout this year, this might be the farthest apart we've been. I think we still have certain guys higher than most, but there's a lot of guys, and I think it's because you fall off in this draft class pretty quickly. So a guy catches your eye and you put him a little higher.
It's like, I don't like this guy. You're like, I don't like this guy.
Kind of like how at one point I had Nathan Beam or Nathan Bem at like 33.
Yeah.
He's not there now because I've watched him more.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it'll be fun to kind of compare and contrast, and allow me to hype up Carter Bear because he's amazing.
Don't worry, Tony. We won't make you like the next preliminary one. It'll just be you getting to flame Will's takes without having to put out any of your own. Just because it'll be more fun that way for the audience.
Yeah, exactly.
I can't wait so I can flame them and have no evidence aside from this video when I go back and rank the same guy at 6th overall.
Yes,
exactly.
Yes. And everybody will forget. Everybody will forget that you're stupid for having this guy this high, and then you'll have him higher.
Carter Bear's garbage, 6th overall.
That's exactly right. But is there, so on that note, as ranking season starts to approach, in your recent work, has there been anyone that you kind of want to take the time to, live on the internet, just go on about? Because I'm sure there's got to be some that just have popped for you recently, that you could get passionate about, because I need it. I need it in my soul at this point in the season.
I mean, I'm not going to go off on Carter Bear. I've done that on the show before.
Right.
I'll do that on the show again later. Jackson Smith, who I know is a guy you like. I watched him the other day. This kid is just so fun. He was another one that stood out at the CHL USA games.
Yes.
His ability to kind of, in that game specifically, I wrote in my Players to Watch article about him. The ability to play so many different ways, and just his raw talent allows him to do that. And going into those games, he did exactly that. He was, in my opinion, the best rush defender of anybody in that group on either side of the teams. He was really, really good at shutting down plays. There was one shift, but with Jackson Smith, there was one shift in that first game where it was just an absolute circus. I think he had two attempts at breaking the puck out, one with his feet, one with the pass. Neither worked. I don't think either got above the face-off dots. But then the very next shift, just absolutely so quietly shut down the rush and move the puck up ice. Just the potential is there. You're going to have to live with some of those moments. And I think he's so fun to watch. I think the talent is just undeniable. He's so mobile, so skilled. He's got size. He's got everything NHL teams want. I think he's going to be a guy that goes higher than some people believe. But one of the other guys, I mentioned Blake Fiddler earlier, Caleb Denoye, Cameron Reed, I'm still trying to figure out, because in some moments I really like the guy. His ability to move the puck is fantastic on the back end for Kitchener. But then there's some moments where I thought he was a guy that adapted as poorly as possible to that CHL USA setting, where he was just kind of almost overwhelmed by the unfamiliarity of what was going on. And that really affected his game. With that said, there was one pass where one of the defensemen made a cross-ice pass, and it was about 3 feet in the air, and he simply just knocked it down and made a play. He has those tools as well, and I think he's a really fun two-way player, really solid player. but I think he was negatively impacted by that environment. There's a lot of guys that I'm looking up and down my list. I'm like, there's a lot of guys who my last couple viewings were not great. Benjamin Kindle, who you talked about at the game, I went back and watched him after that first game because I was like, man, that was a ton of his passing is something, man. Like that guy is constantly trying to find seams with the puck. His passing is really good. I really like him in all three zones. I remember in that first game, I had to double check. I'm like, wait, Benjamin Kindle's a forward. Why did he make a stretch pass from the goal line?
Right.
To Lyndon Lajkovic? But that's his passing is that good that he's able to make those long passes. Really fun to watch. William Bell was interesting. Physical tools.
Oh,
I don't know what else.
Tony, you can't keep doing this to me, man. This is it's too much. My soul is
figuring
too
it
fulfilled.
out.
Yeah. Oh my god.
And shout out to Ivan Fomin because I know you were watching him. What a guy! What a guy! He's so fun to watch. 0% chance he makes it, and if he does, oh boy,
I'm pretending.
Would be so happy.
I'm pretending you didn't just say that. I don't care. I do not. I do not care. I want to meet him. I want to hang out with him. I want to ask him about where the hell he came from and like where what happened there and what like does his doctor have bone growth charts on him or something that indicates he's going to be more than 5'6", 120 pounds? Because holy smokes, oh my god, you want to talk rock star level, swagger. And I'm trying to like Nick Robertson on drugs. Like, just insane.
You know the movie Cocaine Bear? This is cocaine Nick Robertson.
Like cocaine gazelle. Like smaller animal, not as ferocious, clearly. I mean, well, what's a very weak animal? Like a goat?
A cocaine rabbit.
Yeah, cocaine rabbit. There we go. Yeah, we're talking cocaine rabbit there, right? Still going to get eaten by a coyote, but bunnies are cute, and one on cocaine would be really fun. Anyway.
Yeah.
That was a crazy aside.
That was pretty crazy. But I mean, hey, open table for Tony to be Tony Ferrari, man. And that's what we love. That's, it's what we're here for.
Yeah. I think you, Dylan and I were talking about Ivan Fomin a little bit today. And I posted the Rocky meme. If he dies, he dies. And that's just kind of how you have to take him because, boy, is he fun to watch.
The last game I watched of him, he was playing the St. Petersburg's best team. And again, his team is from Vladivostok and they have nobody. So he's the guy there. At the end of the game, he died.
Trip.
Yeah, that's a brutal trip. Yeah, it was in Vladivostok too. So the team from St. Petersburg had to get on a plane and go all the way to Vladivostok and play a game.
That's
which
like
is
8 hours.
It's probably more. I'm curious of actually how long that flight is. St. Petersburg to Vladivostok.
That's just ridiculous.
Plane. It is oh my goodness, why isn't this showing me just how long? That doesn't make sense. Some of these say 11 hours, some of them say 1.7 hours. That doesn't make sense. This website is poo-poo. But anyway, it's a long trip, is what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. And he played great most of the game, and then on his last shift, which makes sense because he got hurt, he just got taken into the boards, fell head first, and he was done. I don't think he's played since. So he might die, but I'm going to hold on to the roller coaster until the wooden roller coaster until the frame snaps. That's what I'm going to do because he's so much fun. There's way less joy watching players this year than usual for me. That when there is joy, I'll latch onto it, and whatever happens, happens. Because God, when that kid is going and when he is hunting guys down, like AJ, I swear to God, I don't think there is a better embodiment of an AJ player out there than Ivan Fomin. Because holy smokes, that kid rocks.
I appreciate you using the correct term, an AJ player. So thank you.
Yes, Yes, I am pretty sure he's a great example of such a thing. On that note, I think that's a good time to switch over to questions. We'll turn it over to the audience again. Fire your questions in the chat. We'll try to fire through them a little bit quicker so we can give better answers to the more recent ones, because this often happens where we get sidetracked by the earliest ones. But let's get going on this and see where things go. So the first one we got, you guys should do a tier list for the most important viewings. World Juniors, under 18s, CHL and DDP, regular season, etc. Tony, I'll let you start this one off because I'm curious of your thoughts on this. I'm sure you ask 10 different people, you're going to get 10 different opinions. But where do you come down on this?
Where I'm going to summarize basic regular season game as club games because the playoffs matter. And I think that's part of it. So club games, in my opinion, number one. You got to watch those. That's where you're going to learn the most. Some exceptions with guys that are playing pro and different things. You got to see how they adapt to their own age group. But club games, U18s, World Juniors are close. I think if you got a guy at the World Juniors, value them, especially if he's playing a decent role. But if he's playing 7 minutes on the fourth line, it's hard to kind of gauge him. So U18s are a little bit better for that. And then the all-star competitions. And that's what I'll say about the CHL and TDP game, because those games are fun, but it's 1 or 2 games. The top prospect game, the CHL Fall Classic or USHL Fall Classic, the upcoming McDavid Cup or whatever the OHL is calling it, where they're going to have just 2 teams of OHL team players going at it. I'm probably not going to value that much. I'm going to be completely honest with you, because
10% of the league will be in that game.
Yeah. And you're not like a lot of those guys, some of those guys aren't going to get drafted. So you're going to have Michael Misa and Porter Martone and some of the higher end OHL guys. Like Matthew Schaefer is going to have the craziest game there. And everyone's going to be like, look, first overall.
Right.
And sure, why not? But yeah, so club games, U18s, World Juniors are close third, and then the All-Star games.
Yeah, I think largely I would agree. I do think the under 18s, I think it depends a lot on the player that you're thinking about, or the team even. So like, I think I'd use an example. So the under 18s, for example, was a really interesting experience with a player like Ludwig Johnson, who I know I won't shut the hell up about. I actually tracked a game of him in the National League today, and he was sick. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. He wasn't, it's impossible to look at the Swiss Junior League and go, okay, here's where I value these players in the context of an NHL draft. It's just not, it's not a great level of play. The quality isn't very good. You know, you got to have guys playing in the pro ranks in some way to really understand what's going on there. But, you know, then he went to the under 18s, wasn't on the initial roster, but landed on the roster. And I saw him play some really good teams. He played the US team. And in that situation, I go, okay, he's out of his comfort zone. This is the hardest game he's probably ever played in his life. And how does it go? And in general, he played pretty well. Like and so to me, it's like you have everybody on an equal footing. The age group is all equalized. And you can then go, okay, this guy from this obscure situation who has been pretty impressive is now on an equal footing as guys who might go in the first round, top 15, top 10. And so how is it a sink or swim kind of thing? How does this go for that player? What are they doing? Where are they falling short? Then you get a really good idea of sort of, okay, I can see where things are positive and where things might need more work. Other than that, you know, it's more about, you know, are these players performing in the way that I've expected them to? Like, I think if you don't watch regular season games and go into those tournaments and come out with takes, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
But if you go into the tournaments with a good background knowledge of how players play, what they're doing, and whatever, and you can come out the other side a lot more informed. Like, and so you mentioned the All-Star games. The Brady Martin thing I thought was really interesting last year, where Brady Martin with Sault Ste. Marie, he touches the puck a lot. He's the center, you know, the center of attention, right? And I just don't think that's his style that works long-term, right? I don't see him as that type of player. But as a really good complementary physical guy who can elevate faster, more skilled players and be that trailing forward who battles to the net and gets those greasy things going and all that, sure, I can totally see it with a guy like Brady Martin. And in that specific scenario, you saw a lot more of that because that was kind of more the role that he seemed to be playing. So that's kind of where I come down on that. It's like, do you do your homework with the regular season games beforehand? And I mean, the World Juniors, I don't really think about much like at all, honestly. For guys that are in the draft, a lot of the time, it's just like the hardest hockey they've ever played. So you can't be too picky. But under 18s are really interesting to me, but just because you get to see some of the weird fringe cases. But regular season is definitely like, club play, definitely a big deal. Someone asked if Zane Parekh is an undisciplined player. It depends on what you mean by undisciplined, I would say. I would say he can be aggravating, but in terms of all of those things put together, I still probably would put him on the World Junior team. I don't know.
Yeah, my thing with Zane Parekh is, I think undisciplined. What do you mean by undisciplined? Do you mean undisciplined positionally? Because very much.
Well, yes,
sometimes.
like
Undisciplined in terms of aggressive, overly aggressive, getting penalties. I don't think inherently he is, but I think he's a red mist player. A Nazem Kadri had this, where Evgeny Malkin has this. When that red mist gets in front of his eyes, it doesn't matter. Like, he's going to do something stupid. And he has done something stupid a number of times in the last couple of years with Saginaw. And I think he's gotten a few suspensions for it. And I think that's going to be something that I think teams have to worry about with his game going forward, especially Calgary as they're the team that drafted him. Are they going to be able to kind of coach that out of him? Are they going to be able to get that out of him? As he matures, is that just going to be something that naturally goes away? Is he going to be able to control himself a little bit better in those situations? I hope so. But with that said, I think NHL teams also love a red mist guy once in a while. So
sure,
I don't think it's necessarily that big of an issue.
Yeah, no, I don't think so. Is Canada the favorite? I mean, we haven't seen rosters for most of the teams, but I mean, I think based on what we've seen, the answer to that would probably be yes. But I am very curious as to what the Swedish team looks like, because they could be gross. Yeah. Otto Stenberg, I think, could be on the team if I'm not mistaken, right? Yep. So Otto Stenberg, David Edstrom could be there, I believe. I think he's still eligible. Yep, David Edstrom. Sandin Pellikka, Willander, Theo Lindstein. Buffalo could send Anton Wahlberg. Felix Unger-Sorum probably will be there. Carolina probably lets him go. He's been kind of meh in the AHL this year. Felix Nilsson is a really good player. I feel like we've all forgotten about, but he's having a good season in the SHL this year. Noel Nord, in last year's draft, Herman Truff, Noel Franzen, Linus Eriksson, Leo Solin Milenius, Alphonse Frey, Gabe Eliasson, Lucas Pettersson. That's a good group of players, like, for Sweden. Yeah. I think that's a good. And in net, you've got you do have Melker Thelin. You could have Melker Thelin, who's been also quite good in overplaying in pro hockey in Sweden. Who's the other goalie they have? Marcus Hideloff. He could be there, I suppose.
They go with Melvin Strahl.
Melvin Strahl. Yeah, David Phillips would know better than us, but that's a good team. I think
I'd be curious to see if they bring a guy like Luve Herenstam as their third,
right? Yeah,
just to get him that experience where he's not going to really probably be forced into action, but get him around it. I know a lot of teams like doing that. I was kind of shocked. The USA almost always does that. That's why a guy like Trey Augustine is on his third World Juniors. So it'll be interesting. Yeah, I think Sweden's got a really good shot. I think the American team is going to be really, really good. If Will Smith gets lent back, I think that changes things as well. That really changes things.
Second line center James Haggins.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Oh no. Reunite James Haggins and Cole Eiserman? Shucks.
With Teddy Stiga? Oh boy, what are you gonna do? Yikes.
Yeah, I can't wait to watch Teddy Stiga in extended action again. I love that guy.
Yeah.
The stud.
He'll go. But yes, I mean, I do think Canada does have a bit of an advantage, but I don't know. Sweden could be really scary when they put that roster out. Finland, I don't think, is going to be on the same level. And I don't think anyone else really. Jamiro Reber will do what he can, but he can't save the Swiss on his own. Danilo Stinkov, I don't think he'll be the key guy there. Leon Mugli, I don't know. I don't think Switzerland's going to be amazing. And The rest of the countries, who cares, right? Who cares at all?
As one of our favorite writers at an outlet that I may or may not work for says, we should shrink the World Juniors.
Oh yeah. I mean, Kazakhstan, there's always a chance, you know. If Vladimir Nikitin saves every single puck he faces, they're gonna win.
Who knows? You could have
Who
a
knows?
Kazakh score a hat trick against Canada again.
Yep, a Kazakh trick.
Oh, name of the episode.
yeah. Oh man. All right. Well, let's move on. Why does Team Canada always refuse to pick the best player available when it comes to selections? Why not make all 4 forward lines stacked and play them 15 minutes? I mean, I kind of get it. You want, like, I guess I don't agree with it, but I understand the philosophy of you do need guys who can just eat minutes and grind the other team down. I do think there is something to be said of, like, the focus isn't necessarily to have the puck all the time and play offense and score, but to beat the crap out of your opponent and make sure that they are earning every goal they get, right? Like, make it miserable for them when they have the puck. And that is a job. It's not flashy. It doesn't show up on the highlight reel a whole lot of the time unless they lay someone out. But I get it. I mean, I don't know. Like, I personally would probably just load the team up and have an all-star team and go, yeah, like, go out and score 12 goals if you want. I don't care. If you win 12-10, great. You know, we won the game. Good for you. But I don't know. I feel like, I don't know. Where are you on that? It just seems to be the way it is, I guess.
Yeah. I think until Hockey Canada has a very drastic change of philosophy, this is kind of what we're always going to get. As the guy who had a third line of Porter Martone, Michael Misa, and Carson Rakoff, I think it would be awesome to have 4 lines that could all beat you. I think it'd be awesome to be able to put out everyone for 10 to 12 minutes and go, who's really going, and we'll play them as the first line tonight.
Right.
I think it'd be great. With that said, the excuse that I always get when I talk to people in hockey about this is, well, you need someone to penalty kill. You need someone to do this. And it's like, I don't know. I think you could throw out Easton Cowan on the penalty kill, a Callum Ritchie, a Carson Rakoff, even a Michael Misa. Like, there are guys that play penalty kill fairly regularly on their team.
Right.
That could be on this Team Canada team. If you did do that, load up 4 lines role. So this is junior hockey. A lot of these guys play on the penalty kill. Let's be honest, the penalty kill specialist probably isn't that good. That's why they're a penalty kill specialist, and getting them as the third line right winger or something on Team Canada has always been a little silly to me, but that's what they always seem to do. So it is what it is. I would love to see them load up all 3 pairings, all 4 lines, but it'll probably never happen.
Yeah.
How infuriating is it going to be to see Hockey Canada pick the 4 Nations team as well and leave everybody's favorite players off?
Tom Wilson, first line winger.
Well,
That's
you
what
I swear to God, if Tom Wilson
and
makes
Brock
his team,
Nelson.
I like Brock Nelson. I actually like Brock Nelson, though.
I don't dislike Brock Nelson. I don't even dislike Tom Wilson.
Well, I don't
I just
dislike
don't
him.
know if either of them should be on Team Canada's best on best roster.
Tom Wilson, definitely not. Brock Nelson, I think there's a much better case.
Sure.
I mean, fair enough.
But I wouldn't do it. My
Right.
I built out a 4 Nations team that I'm going to share on Thursday for when Canada announces it on Wednesday, like the full roster, so you can all flame me then for not having certain
Sure.
players on there. But my 4th line, and I did think about penalty kill, but I didn't care ultimately because I just went, what if I just throw out a line of Sorelli, Hagel, and Mark Stone, and that's my 4th line. And that's so much of my penalty kill anyways, and those guys are incredible. So why not do that? Because that's going to be, you're gonna hate yourself when you play against those 3 guys. And I feel like it'd be pretty sick to see those 3 guys play together and just cause havoc.
Yeah. Well,
But it won't happen.
time will tell. No, probably not. Don Waddell has a track record of doing smart things. I hope the Wild don't get a lemon and their skating coaches can turn Jiricek into the player scouts thought he was 2 years ago. So yeah, if you live under a rock, David Jiricek was traded from the Columbus Blue Jackets at long last. Just before we get into it, the package was Jiricek and a 5th-round pick this year for Damon Hunt, a 1st-round pick this year, top 5 protected, a 3rd-round pick, a 4th-round pick, and a 3rd and a 4th next year, and a 2nd in 2027. I mean, AJ, we just watched a Jiricek like last week.
That's a crazy package.
That's a lot, I think, but it doesn't matter if it doesn't matter if Columbus botches the draft picks. And that Minnesota 1st-round pick probably isn't super high.
Well, it'll depend, right? Like, I know they're doing really well right now,
yeah,
so they can afford to be a little more risky with it and just like say, here's the pick. But they did top 5 protect it. But I don't know.
Yep.
I don't know that I'd pay that much. Like, I would have just been like, okay, that's pretty crazy. I'll find something a little more on the value side of things and move on. But like, he's going to be a good player. It's just that's so much. That's so much.
As of today, he's the best player in that deal.
Yes.
And he can play on Minnesota probably. I mean, he's playing now, isn't he? Like, he's with the team, right? So he's going to get his reps. Based on my experience watching him in the NHL this year, I'm not totally convinced he's going to be an impact player like right away. And this is all of a. I mean, the only thing is if there's like some psychological thing about being in Columbus and then now he's free of that. He's in Minnesota. I saw a little featurette about him, his first day showing up in Minnesota, and a player picked him up who is also Czech on the Minnesota Wild. And I did catch him say that it's really, really hard not having someone who is Czech with you, which I think is a really underrated prospect development thing. Like, I think that it is so important to make sure that your players are socially comfortable with the situation that they're in, right? Like, if I put the shoe on the other foot, like, and I feel like all of us would agree, like if I got packed up in a box and shipped to Sweden and had to play for a Swedish team tomorrow, and I mean, granted, a lot of Swedish people speak the language, but I don't speak Swedish, right? That's a cultural adjustment. And if I'm 17 or 18 years old, that's a big jump. That's a big thing to do, especially playing professional hockey, let alone in the NHL, right? So it's a lot. And so not having that around, I think, is a big factor. So maybe just the mental blocks are gone now and maybe things will be better. But I don't know. Tony, have you seen much of Jiricek recently and shine a little bit more light on this?
Yeah, I went back and watched him when all the trade chatter initially started earlier this season because I'm like, this is the guy I really liked in his draft year. There were issues. I still think the agility and the four-way mobility can sometimes be an issue defensively specifically. But this is also a guy who has kind of the cerebral offensive mindset in the understanding that he has to move along the blue line if he wants to create offense effectively. He's a guy that has a huge shot. I think the shot from the blue line, as much as I don't want to see a guy shoot from the blue line, if you're going to, you better have a shot like Jiricek because at least it's effective that way. I think he's going to fit in Minnesota pretty well because they're going to be able to insulate him there. I think coming into that lineup, even if he's not an everyday player initially for them, I think part of the issue with him in Columbus was just the fact that at the end of the day, this kid had a favorite press box. Your 20-year-old defenseman at the time should never have a favorite press box in the NHL.
Right.
Get him out of send him down if that's the case. He's done. Like, I watched a few games from his playoff run last year in the AHL. He was fantastic at times there. I thought he was timing his hits really effectively. His defensive play looked much better. And the AHL is a little bit lower pace than the NHL. So that plays a factor into it. But this is a kid that you want to kind of have a little bit of a slow burn with. Minnesota is going to be able to do that. They don't need him to play top pairing. They have no hopes of him playing top pairing. Brock Faber's there. They have Zebullion who can be that offensive dynamo. So they have guys that are slotted ahead of him in the future and in the present. Jared Spurgeon, Jonas Brodin, these guys are going to be able to kind of go, you're not needing to come in here. Like in Columbus, it was Zach Werenski and Jordan Harris, like Eric Goodbranson. Like it's just not the same. So if I'm David Juracek, quite honestly, and I'm seeing like before his injury, Eric Goodbranson, but if I'm seeing them play Ivan Provorov, who's been pretty ineffective at times this year, if I'm seeing them play guys like Jordan Harris ahead of me, I'm going, what are you doing? I'm getting frustrated too. So I understand it. I think he's gonna succeed more in Minnesota. Skating coaches, whatever, you need him to work on that first step mobility, the quickness, the agility in small area small area games, which at the NHL level, that we talked about John Tavares. Small area games are how he's made his career as high and as impactful as it's been so far. So I think David Juracek on the flip side of that defensively needs to work on that area, but you have the insulators around him now. You have guys that you can get him to play behind. You're not asking him to play up in the lineup. You're not asking him to be something that he doesn't necessarily have in his game. So I think that's the biggest thing with David Juracek is I think now you're going to a second location too. Like now you've got the label of bust already. You don't have to worry about whether or not you're going to be a bust. You've been traded. You're on your second team. It's a fresh start. This is a team that clearly wanted you. They traded a lot for you. So go out there, do what you can. And there's no rush. Like if they take him out of the lineup for a game, put him back in the next game. Like how they manage him is going to be really important, I think.
Yep.
Yeah, I agree.
So quickly, Will, was it Jacob Lauko who was the guy?
Jacob Lauko. Yes, that makes sense.
Because he's the only other Czech guy on the roster.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Any thoughts on some of the following European players? Thomas Pobazal, Wojtek Chihar, and Mikkel Eriksson. I mean, I've seen Eriksson a lot. Skill. I don't think it's enough to be an NHL pro at all. Maybe, but I don't think so. Chihar, I've seen a little bit. I'm more curious about him at the World Juniors. I can't say I've seen it enough to be like, here's what he is. Pobazal, I thought there was maybe something there over the last couple of years, but he hasn't seemed to take that, like he's kind of there. He's kind of a guy in the Slovakian top division this year. I've never seen him be too much of a needle mover, but I am overdue for another watch. I don't know if you have any expanding thoughts on answering that question.
Yeah, I think last time I was on, someone asked about Pobazal as well.
Yes,
and I mentioned that it might have been the worst game I've watched of any player from this draft class. I watched another since then, and it was better. I think there is something there.
Yes.
I don't know if I'm drafting him too high, but he was better. He looks functional, but functional isn't great. Chihar, like you said, World Juniors will show a little bit more. I haven't seen a ton of them. Mikkel Eriksson, man, it would be cool. It would be cool if he was a thing.
It would be cool, yeah.
But I don't think he's a thing.
No.
Yeah, that's really what I got with him.
Yeah, that makes sense. In the past, you've struggled with the term hockey sense, but I'd argue the recent Nikita Artamanov video walked through tons of examples of how it can be defined. Thoughts? Yeah, I think it's more that like when people just say that hockey sense is good, that's kind of where I have an issue because the question for me is like, well, what do you mean by that? Right. So with Artamanov, yeah, I agree. There's a lot of really good examples of the various things that go into seeing the game and feeling out the game in the right way and being aware of the game. It's just, I always like to analyze players as like, well, what about this? What specific situations are you talking about? When, what is a player bringing to the table and what are they maybe lacking a little bit? And so when someone just goes, well, their hockey sense is great, I'm just like, well, okay, where on the ice? When? Like, it can't be the same level all the time, right? Like, it's just not possible. So I do agree that his report is a really good example of exactly what it is that a guy like him brings to the table. And a lot of those concepts, it's just a matter of how people utilize the terminology, I guess is what I'm saying in that world. Thoughts on Jonah Neuenschwander making his National League debut at 15? Yeah, so brother of potential draft pick this year, Elijah Neuenschwander, 6'3", 15-year-old, played 3 games in the National League this year. I've never heard of this player, but I will take a look because that is very interesting. I don't know if that's the youngest player to ever play in the National League, but I'm sure it can't be that far off. I can't imagine too many 15-year-olds are playing there. Maybe he's better than Landon DuPont. Maybe I can tweet that out in an hour. I'll be like, I watched this Jonah Neuenschwander. He's 6'3". Maybe he's the next Mike Rathje or something. He's the, I don't know.
Who dat?
Exactly. Yeah, well, he was the big boy of the big boy era. I think he was like a 6'8", 260 pound. Anyway, but
I like his name because his name is Jonah, and Jonah is the name of my brother. So
there you go. And he's got a great last name. One of those names that probably you'd have to curve it on a jersey, Neuenschwander. Yeah, it's good.
Oh,
like Ponikarovsky back in the day on Toronto, or Ryan Vandenbush, or I don't know. I'm trying to think of other really long names in the NHL. Anyway, I am looking at his elite prospects page, and he was 13 years old in 22-23, and he had 52 goals in 30 games playing in under 15 hockey as a 13-year-old. So let's party, let's rock. He's a point a game ish at the under 20 level as a 15-year-old. So next Marco Rossi.
No, he's better than that.
Yeah, right.
No, he's about a foot and a half taller than Marco Rossi.
Right, he is. Yeah, so he's going to be.
So he must be much worse. My apologies.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Probably worse. What's next? Thoughts on Sawyer Mineo? I mean, a rock solid dude. Really solid, smart, capable defenseman. I've never been blown away with his game, but that's not a criticism.
Yeah, good, smart defensive guy.
He'll play. He'll eat some minutes. He's pretty decent.
He'll eat some minutes. He'll eat some pucks. He'll be fine.
Yeah. No. Can someone explain why so many players can't play for Canada? I don't know what that means, honestly.
Probably that Joey Decord is a Swiss national.
Oh, I honestly haven't been keeping up with any of that drama.
What's hilarious is, and I heard on 32 Thoughts today, that if one of the goalies get hurt in the time being and he gets his Canadian passport, he could still play for the team.
Oh my God.
It's so crazy to me that they don't take Joey Decord's Canadian citizenship as citizenship. Because he doesn't have a Canadian passport, because he only has the Swiss passport, that's why he can't play for Canada, which is mind-blowing, because this is not even a IIHF event. Why are you putting artificial regulations on things?
Well, but the other thing is, because it's not a IIHF event, he can play for whatever team he wants to and not be bound to that for when he plays for a IIHF events.
It's so crazy.
Yes, it is.
Also, Fraser Minton just scored.
Yeah.
It's 3-1.
Oh, goody. Fraser Minton, baby. Blake Fiddler is interesting.
Noted
the US
game tape interview, yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Not with our channel, so don't watch it.
No.
But,
yeah, don't go watch it. Yeah, no, don't bother. Yeah, go watch Cam Schmidt instead. He's cooler.
Cam Schmidt was fun.
Yeah, Cam Schmidt was fun. That was a good one. Apparently Dominic Badinga has a bad relationship with Czech hockey. He's barely played in international tournaments for them. That's true, actually. I feel like he hasn't really played that much internationally for them. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's we don't like that you left to go to Sweden when you were he left to play in Finland, and that's where I first saw him.
Yeah. In Malmö, Sweden.
Yeah, he played 3 games with the under-20 team last year, but that's it. Yeah, as soon as he went to Sweden, it seems to have fallen apart. Riker Lee is putting up great numbers in the USHL, but isn't getting much attention. Is there anything there with him? Tony, do you have anything on Riker Lee? Because that's a player I've poked in on here and there, and I don't really see it. But
I was going to say, I have watched Riker Lee. I didn't love Riker Lee.
Right.
Yeah, there's a few people on Twitter hyping him up. I'll let them do that.
Yeah, like he strikes me as a guy, one of those guys who's, he's not small, right? He used to be, but he's grown a little.
So
But
now Will hates him. When he was smaller,
yes,
Will
exactly. Yeah.
Will
Yeah.
would have been all over this hype train.
Yes, exactly. You know me well. But yeah, I mean, he's always been a guy where I'm like, well, like, what's the NHL level talent with him, right? I think he'll be a good college player. I think when he goes to Michigan State, he'll be really good there. I think he'll be a really good college player. I don't know if it's like he's just grown a lot recently and he's maybe, lost a bit of a step and he needs to grow into his body a little bit here and there. But whenever I've watched him, it's like, yeah, he's a okay skater. He's skilled, I guess, and has some good finish, but nothing that really like jumps out at you, right? Nothing where you're like, oh, I can see how this is what he's going to be in the NHL. But he is one that I haven't really seen in super detail, and I do definitely need to before too long because, got to be sure about these things, I suppose, as sure as you can be. How many points is Jamiro Reber going to score for Switzerland this year? 30?
All of them.
All of them?
All two of them.
All two.
Yeah,
Yeah, he's going to score both of their goals.
And he'll assist on a third.
I hope he pulls out the lacrosse goal again. That was fun as hell.
Jamiro Reber was a guy I loved last year. I loved his relative. I had him in the late second round, but not a lot of people had him ranked. And now this year, he's really taken a step and doing a lot of the things that I saw him doing in flashes last year, but he's doing it so much more consistently this year. I hope he has a big showing at the World Juniors. I hope he's able to kind of boost his draft stock and get his name back on draft boards this year. But we'll see. Switzerland's not the strongest. So
yeah, I mean, I saw him today. Actually, funny coincidence. Did another game of him today, and I mean, he's fast as hell. He's a road runner out there, so you can't take that away from him. He's a goer. But we'll see. I'm not like, I think he'll be really good at this tournament because I think he's been quite good in the SHL. I think my hype level on him has cooled a little bit since, but at the end of the day, his first SHL goal, I believe, was a lacrosse goal. So I don't care then. Like, that's just brownie points indefinitely because that's hilarious and badass and just a heck of a thing to have on your resume. The last time Finland won a World Junior preliminary round was 2002. I did not know that. That's crazy. A 6-point tie with Canada. So their recipe has always been to get to the quarterfinals and just hope things work out. Yeah, I mean, Finland, like, just looking at their history here, I'm going to pull it up, but it is pretty interesting to see the trend there, right? Like, 2016-17, they got saved in the relegation game. They lost the bronze medal game last year, quarterfinal loss. They actually won it in 2019. Was that the Kasperi Kapanen year? Was that one?
No, that
was 2015-16.
15-16.
That was 16. But yeah, I mean, they haven't had a tremendous amount of success. They've won the gold medal 3 times. But that is it in terms of medals. Oh, no, they haven't. Weird. Sorry. Elite Prospects lists a trophy next to winning medals for some of the years, but not all of them. So never mind. But anyway, interesting statistical factoid. But yes, they do seem to be a team that makes the quarterfinal count. That generally seems to be my impression of that team. How do you think LJ Mooney projects to the NHL? I just don't see what role he could have in the NHL and certainly isn't worth a first-round pick. I just want him to be a thing. I just want him to, because he's so fun. And like, I remember him at the under 18s last year. He was gross. Like, he's top 6 or bust for me. I don't know. How about you?
Yeah. No, he's kind of top 6 or bust. At the end of the day, like, I like that he has a little bit of that bulldog mentality. Like, he goes to the net. He gets to the middle of the ice. He does the things you want to see from smaller guys. And yeah, he has so much offensive skill and flair that I want to see him make it. But he really is he's a hit or miss guy. I think top 6 or bust. But man, it sure would be fun if he was top 6.
I mean, he strikes me as a guy that like Carolina is going to draft in the 4th round, and they're going to go. I mean, it's let's say a 5% chance that he becomes anything, but if he becomes something, he's going to be the best 4th round pick of the draft, or probably plus or minus a season or two, because like the ceiling on LJ Mooney is, I would argue, as high as almost anybody. Like he is so skilled, lightning quick. His passes are tape to tape. I think he had 2 points in the CHL Prospect Series last week. I know he definitely set up the only goal of the game in London on the power play, but I don't know. He definitely didn't look the same as what I remember him when we saw him. He hasn't looked the same at all. Or I guess that's the only games he's played, but he didn't really look the same at all. But I remember last year, like he went to the under 18s. He was the only 07 on that team and looked really darn good there. Lightning quick again, that the quick hands, quick shot, quick everything. And he just hunts guys down.
Yeah.
I want it to work. I really want it to work. And I feel like he's a guy that a team like Carolina is going to look at in the 4th round and go, take a chance on him. And he ends up on their second line in 7 years. And we all go, here they go again.
Yeah, he's the kind of guy that if he was a couple inches taller, I think people would be talking about him as a possible top 10 talent. The skill that he has, the ability to play, but it's the fact that he is 5'7", and it's tough to be 5'7" in the NHL.
Yeah, I mean, the way he played last week, I would say that he didn't look like an NHL prospect really last week. But again, his knee exploded. So what can you do? Will any of you follow the World Junior A in a week? I'm guessing scouting the Swedish team will be of interest. Playing against older competition. So I will be. I always chip in on the World Junior A for puck preps. So I'll be doing game reports over there for them. I don't know about you, Tony, if you watch much of the World Junior A Challenge.
I watch it. Out of curiosity. I don't necessarily scout it as like this is what I'm taking a ton of takes from. But you find a guy or two that have a good performance and you track them the rest of the year. You see how they do and stuff like that. It's decent competition. It's good competition. So I'll watch it. It's not going to be something I'm dialed into though.
Right. I mean, that's where I first discovered Trevor Hoskin, who the Calgary Flames then went ahead and drafted, an 04 OJHL player. And I was like, this kid actually really rips. And he's almost a point a game with Niagara University this year. So there's a plus. But yeah, I mean, I do like watching that tournament because it does sort of showcase a different side of Canadian hockey. And you're right. The person who asked the question is right. The Swedish team does bring an underage team. So that's also a plus to see those guys. This guy on the right. Oh, so Tony looks like the YouTuber Wickens Reptiles. Okay, well, you look like a reptile.
Him up right now.
I don't know who that is.
Why not?
Well, is it?
All right. I'm not even sure if I should say thank you, but great.
Oh, you do kind of look like this guy. That's kind of funny.
Send me the photo.
Yeah. Oh, now it's playing one of his videos. Yeah, I'll just screen capture one of these. Yeah. Here you go. I just posted it in our team chat there.
One of them is this guy's canceled. So
oh, is it? Uh-oh.
Can't wait.
Uh-oh. Oh boy.
The next one says underrated geckos though, so
underrated geckos. Who is rating geckos?
That guy, clearly.
That's my question.
Who's got the gecko rating?
Should we do a gecko tier list? Is that a thing?
Oh no.
Make a gecko tier list.
We have many questions to get to though, unfortunately.
Oh, there is a gecko tier list. Anyway,
well, not unfortunately, but we should.
The description says some geckos, baby. I love tiermaker.com. It's the best. Okay. Thoughts on Eddie Genborg and Luca Romano? That's way less fun. I mean, Eddie Genborg is a hitty boy. He's going to follow you around. He's going to hit you. He's going to go to the net. He's going to slap in hockey pucks. He's probably going to be on the under 18 team this year and just be annoying. He's going to He's big and goes to the net, hits people, and I think he's kind of slow, but not the end of the world. He's fine. I don't know. And Romano is a smart player. I think that's the biggest thing with him. I feel like he's a long shot, but he's very smart and loves to move the puck in a really good way. Careful passer, lots of good stuff there. I don't know, Tony. If I imagine you've seen more of Romano, but what about Genborg and Romano?
Genborg, I ended up watching because I saw that he played some SHL games, and it looks like he's up to 8 now. But yeah, you're pretty accurate. He's a bit physical guy, goes to the net, kind of crash and bang. I'm sure he'll have a good U18s because there's plenty of Swedish guys that have done that over the last few years. As for Romano, though, I think you said he's smart. That's completely accurate. He's a player that's good at a lot of things. There's not really anything he's great at, though. And I think that kind of holds guys like him back at the next level, because you can be good, but you have to find something you excel at.
Yeah, I agree. I'm on the same page there. Perek has more PIMs than Yakinchuk. That's funny. I mean, yeah, it's true. I don't doubt it. He plays with a bit of that, cutting edge, I suppose.
I like the red mist. That's a good analogy.
Yeah, there is a bit of that. Is it weird that the Flyers have 5 regulation wins? Not really.
No,
I don't think. I mean, they were kind of not expected to be great this year, if I'm not mistaken.
How many overtime wins and shootout wins do they have? I think that's more
right.
If we look at it in terms of how they have 12 wins.
So 7 wins are non-regulation.
Yeah, okay, that's a little weird.
No, that's clutch.
Yeah, they're clutch.
Is it?
Yeah, 7 overtime wins. Yeah, 10 of their games have gone to overtime.
That's clutch. Speaking of clutch, the African fat-tailed gecko.
Hey, now we're talking. Yeah.
Man.
I think it's crazy that a team like Philadelphia has been to overtime 10 times this year already, and the Rangers have been once.
They didn't make it to overtime tonight because they lost 5-1.
Rip.
Welcome, Rangers fans, to the channel. You're going to be here a long time.
Maybe. Maybe they'll trade all of their futures and it'll fix everything. I don't know. I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised he didn't make it, but surprised that Noah Chadwick wasn't invited. His general manager is the general manager of the Canadian team. And we say the coach got Luca Pinelli over Michael Misa. Very surprised with Alan Key, who's Aki, I'm assuming, and Brunick. Yeah, I mean, I'm not super surprised that Chadwick wasn't invited, but when you look at who they did bring, I'm kind of going, well, maybe. But I didn't watch much of the summer showcase. I don't know if you did either, but I was told that that Chadwick wasn't very good there.
Yeah.
And I wonder if like that, Hockey Canada just goes, well, we saw him and he wasn't very good, so why would we bring him to camp? Is that accurate? Is that true? Is that a good way of doing it? I don't know.
Yeah, it's probably accurate. Like I don't think he was great in the summer. So when you have a guy that you look at and you go, if we wanted you, we could bring a better version of you. I think that's the big reason that Noah Chadwick wasn't there.
Right.
Just not really not the NHL, not really a Hockey Canada style guy.
Yeah. Sidebar comment. I always find the Swedes' grasp of English from day one incredible. Well, they have a functional education system, so they learn these things. They also watch a lot of English TV, which helps. If you want to learn a language, watch TV in that language.
No, it's true. I can sing in Italian very well, but can I speak it? No.
Yeah.
Because I was there and I was barely I could understand a lot of it, but I couldn't speak it. And watching some of my cousins go, their faces light up when I was singing Italian, it's like, he's basically a mute, is what they said. And he's talking about in the depths of his soul with this song. This is incredible. So, yeah, when there's a lot of media or culture, just anything, content, that's what I meant to say.
Right.
If you consume content in another language, it's easier to pick it up.
All right, where are we now? Have we talked about Quentin Musty? Oh yeah, there's no Musty on the U.S. team. Is he injured?
He did hurt his wrist. I think he broke his wrist, actually, if I'm not mistaken.
Ooh.
But I was also told from somebody that I don't think Musty was going to be there regardless. I'm not certain that his holdout at the start of the season played a role, but there has always been a bit of contention between Musty and the USA Hockey. We talked about Badinka and Czech Hockey not really having a great relationship. I think Musty and USA Hockey's a bit similar. He's not really ever been given the reins and given a ton of run. They've always gone with guys lesser than him at international events and stuff. So I don't even think he was going to be at this camp if he was healthy.
When you have an opportunity to keep a guy who has 15 points in his last 5 games at home in the OHL, you just got to take it. You know, you got to set politics in the forefront of the discussion and go, we are mad at this player. He's staying home. We're not touching this with a 20-foot pole. You know, bring Trevor Connolly to town. We'll do that. But Quentin Musty is a bridge too far. No matter how many points he scores, you know, maybe they just have something against the town of Hamburg, New York. I don't know. Maybe. I don't know.
Bigger fans of hot dog, New York.
Hey, good one. Anyway, has the offensive element in a defenseman's game gotten too much attention now? It's clear that Schaefer looks like he could be a world-class all-around defenseman, but he won't get the layperson's respect. I think the first part I agree with. The second part, I mean, the thing that everybody was losing their minds about with Schaefer is when he went end-to-end and when he was going to the net and going for those scoring chances and pushing things offensively. If anything, that's where I've really enjoyed Schaefer. Like, positionally, I think he's smart. He's very capable, you know, good awareness of space and where to put himself. But when he's got the puck on his stick and he's monitoring the ice and looking for options and cooking and doing stuff in the offensive zone, like, he's lights out. Like, that's where I think he's really special. But I do agree. I think I mean, again, like, you look at, I've said this a billion times, but I've looked at the data and the number of defensemen in the NHL who are really valuable defensive players. There are just as many that are undrafted as there are like first or second or third round picks. Mm-hmm. Like evaluating defensive ability with prospects is still, I would argue, not where it could be. And I feel like when you look at a lot of defensemen in the draft, like, people focus on the offense by default because points equals good, right? Like, if someone's scoring a lot, that means they must be a high level prospect, which is not always the case. But I do, and again, I've talked about this, and we talk about it we've done videos for Zane Parekh and Sam Dickinson. Like, defenders have to defend, right?
Parek's
like, first, Parekh is on his way, but it basically is like, defenders have to be able to defend. Right? An NHL coach with their job on the line, if you play young defensemen who have trouble defending, you're putting yourself at risk, right? Mm-hmm. So to me, I like the guys whose offense is born out of their good defense, right? They break the puck out really well. They walk an offensive blue line when the puck is there really well. They keep a cycle moving. You know, I don't really care so much about stepping up from the blue line and activating and dangling from the blue line with the puck on their stick and all that stuff. It's fun, but that's not the job, right? To me. So to me, I do think that there is a bit of that, you know, and it's why I was a little lower on guys like Parekh and Dickinson and even Silayev last year. All of the defensemen pretty much last year. And it's why there are guys that I've put on my list in the middle of the second or third round, because I go, they move well enough and they're lanky enough and they're big enough where I could see them being solid defenders, right? And there's enough data evidence to basically make the pitch that, yeah, these guys are decent defensive players, and overall results, their impact is pretty positive. So I don't know. I mean, if you have anything to add on that, take it away, or we can move on.
No, I largely agree with you. I think the big thing is, with Schaefer specifically, everything about his game is that he's really good all over the ice, and he fits specifically when playing in the OHL. He really focuses on that defensive end of the ice. He's not this like run and gun offensive defenseman every single night. It seems like he saves that end-to-end goal or the big moment, the big play in the offensive zone for the big moment. Like he's not a guy that needs to be forcing that big moment every play, every shift. And that's kind of what I've appreciated about him. You get to overtime of the Canada Winter Games, you get to the U18s, you get to a CHL USA showcase. Yeah, he's going to bust that out, right? Like that's when to do it. Get the eyes on you when you need to. But when he's playing his game, for the most part, he's making good plays defensively. He's excellent in transition. I think that's the area of the game that is the best part of his game. And then offensively, he's more than capable of doing things when he needs to. So is he that top tier Erik Karlsson level of offensive defenseman? No, I don't think that's what he is. But every once in a while, he shows you enough to get the general fan to be like, look at this kid go.
Right. Yeah, no, I agree. But yeah, in general, I do agree with the sentiment of like looking at defensemen through an offensive lens can be sketchy. Especially because there's also oftentimes some decent potential offensive defensemen available elsewhere that people forget about because they're small or European or both or Russian or whatever. Cam Schmidt and John Mooney are the same height. It's not about size, it's about having a game that translates to the NHL. Mooney has skill, but does he have the skating and ability to avoid contact? I would say yes. Like when he's really going, both of them do.
Yeah.
I think Mooney is almost like the playmaker version of Cam Schmidt almost. Like really good shooter, but the playmaking and the vision and the rush offense is just insane with him. And that's something that I want more out of Cam Schmidt in terms of developing his game a little bit from here. Don't be as shot heavy and maybe think about moving the puck a little bit more in the offensive zone.
Yeah, I think with Cam Schmidt, you look at him, there's a reason he had 12 shots the other day. Like he loves to shoot the puck. With John Mooney, like you said, he very much is a similar style of player, pumps up the pace, high octane offensive guy. But instead of taking that shot on the rush from the faceoff dot when you're on a 2-on-1, he's making the pass more often than not. He's fading to the outside and drawing a little bit of pressure and then making the pass. Like he's like you said, the playmaking version. I think John Mooney has what it takes to be that guy. The injury and the time off and now what's probably going to be a bit of a slow return will probably downgrade him. And like you said, a 4th, 5th round pick by Carolina. And we're all going to be kind of going, oh my God, they did it again.
Yeah. Like he's a guy who I mean, I'll have him ranked high, but I don't think I would actually draft him high.
Yeah.
But if he's there in like the 3rd round, I am sprinting to the microphone to call his name and go, whatever happens, happens. I don't even really care all that much. I just want to see what happens with this guy. And I think at the very, very least, he's going to be a tremendous college player, assuming his knee injury can sort of come back to the normal, to bring him back, to where he could be. Anyway, we can move on. Have you seen any of who's Kent Greer? I guess that answers your question.
North Bay defenseman, 16-year-old. I've seen him in the periphery and I've seen him make a couple nice plays and gone, who is this? And I look him up and then I forget about him because one, he's a 2008. He's not really a guy that I'm paying too much attention to at the moment. With this draft class being the kind of main focus, especially at this point in the year. And two, I also see him make some pretty bad plays. So it's not like he's blowing the doors off, but he's at least a player worth keeping an eye on for next year.
Oh, he's so teeny tiny. He's 5'8".
And he's a wee fella.
That means he's awesome.
That's why they brought him up, Will, because he's small.
Oh,
Must
okay.
be,
I see. Well, they can definitely be made smaller. So if you can, let's go that. That's that. What I don't know.
LJ Mooney for Hart Trophy is what Will wants one day. 2037.
Thoughts on Emil Heinemann in the NHL so far? Has been a nice surprise for the Habs, especially on the forecheck. Great shot release too. That's Emil Heinemann. He's been the same guy in the NHL he's always been. Rock'em sock'em robots off the puck and just ripping shots on it. Like that is his thing. It works. It can work. He's fast. He's big. He's heavy. He shoots good.
Yeah, I think I have a Habs fan that is a good friend of mine. At the start of the year, he's like, oh, this Emil Heinemann guy, he's been really good on the 4th line. And I'm like, yeah. And like, I won't be shocked if he plays some minutes in your top 6, especially with line A out now.
Yeah.
I think he could be a pretty functional player next to guys like Suzuki, Caulfield, Doc, Newhook, and Slav, some of the guys up there. because he does bring that like just all out physical. He's going to go blow you up along the boards, and then he's going to rip it on the rush. Like he has a fun shot. So he's a very simple player, but he can be pretty effective in that simple role when he's with the right players.
Right. So, it was the Tyler. Wow, the Tyler Toffoli trade from Montreal is not looking too bad. Heineman, I mean, Tyler Pitlick, whatever, but a first-round pick in 2022, which I imagine would have been Machar. Was that a Machar pick, I think, and a 5th-round pick? I mean, that's not so bad for a rental. Anyway, cool. Okay, what do we got here? Schaefer will be a better defenseman than Erik Karlsson. Well, we'll see. True. That is true. Any thoughts on Sacha Boumedienne?
But no.
Okay.
No.
Well,
I will say it. Anybody would be a better defenseman than Erik Karlsson at defending.
Oh boy. Okay. Sacha Boumedienne thoughts? You can ask that question on Thursday because he's on my list for tomorrow. I haven't seen him in a while. Tony.
I was gonna say, honestly, I haven't seen Sacha Boumedienne in a while. Last time I watched him, I went, I don't want to watch him for a while. It's probably time to circle back. So,
Jeez.
In fairness, there's a lot of players in this draft class where I've been going, I don't think I want to watch this player for a while. And then inevitably I have, like 2 weeks later, I get back around and I'm in that range of guys that I'm watching again. And I'm like, oh, not this guy again. I'll watch Boumedienne again. And I've seen him and I've liked him at times. I'll say
I don't want to be around anymore.
Am I wrong to say this?
I don't want to be here anymore.
I don't want to be here anymore.
When I was watching guys a lot more intensely, it was like listening to a good song when you had like a really good player that you were watching, because you'd be like nodding your head like, yes, this guy rocks. Oh, I love him. And when it was somebody who you were just like uninterested in, it was this overwhelming feeling of nah. Like that's what I feel like scouting is. You're like, oh, this guy rocks. Yes. Like you're all into it, and then the next thing you're looking at, it's like, I'm trying to think of a name here. But I won't throw anybody under the bus, but you just go.
That really is the ultimate test of if you really want to do stuff like this. Like, can you hang and sit and watch players knowing full well that most of them will not be NHL players? Mm-hmm. You have to find out why. And also, like, can you just watch a hockey game and just sit there and go, huh? And then do it all over again. And do that, in my case, at least 800 times a year. Can you do that? A lot of people might not be able to, right? It's all fun and games when you're watching James Hagen score every goal he's scored in the year. And then at the end of it, you go, all right, he's sick. He's great. Cool. But, you know, I mean, I'm up to like 172 individual players in my database this year, which is more than usual at this point. But that's because I'm desperately trying to find something exciting. You know, there's a lot of fine. There's a lot of guys. When I finish games, I go, yep, that's about what I expected.
A lot of blah.
Move on. Yeah. I mean, there's only so many tiny Russians that I can throw my weight behind in a given year before I start sounding really out of my mind. Ivan Fomin, you know, that's one. Maybe Andrei Zavadsky, that's another one. I'm not sure if you've been introduced to him yet, but he's a riot. Anyway, we're getting off topic again, which is typical.
But on that note, though, like I just pulled up the 2019 draft because that was, I think, the first draft you and I connected on. And I'm looking at the players who have played upwards of 100 games at this point. It's now 2024-25. The 2019 draft should be kind of in the range of getting to the NHL and into the NHL for now.
Correct.
You've had a few players like Jack Hughes and Capo Kakko and Dylan Cozens who are over 300 games. Mort Seider's almost at 300 himself. But then you go down the list, and there are guys that I remember watching in junior, like Mark Kastelik, who's played 169 games. A guy like Simon Holmstrom, who I think we're a little higher on, who's played 150. Alex Vlasic, 121.
He was playing on the power play for Chicago tonight, by the way.
Yeah, Jackson
did not think
Lacombe,
that
like
was-
Dmitry Vorokornov,
Yeah.
Henry Thrun, like these are guys that have played a bunch of games. Maybe not the most exciting player to watch, but they're guys that we had to watch. And
Yep.
then I look at guys that have not played a game yet, and how many times did we go and watch a guy like Robert Master Simone
Yeah.
or Albin Grieva, like
Yep.
John Farinacci, Gianni Fairbrother, like Ilya Konovalov.
Yeah.
Like, I remember watching these guys and going, you know what? Maybe there's something there. There's tons of time still for some of these guys. Like Dominic Fensori, maybe he gets there. I really hope.
How did you know? I was
I
just
love-
going to say his name.
I love the boy,
He's been good in the AHL this year. He's doing the thing. So
but
there's
I
that.
think realistically, there's as good a chance that Dominic Fensori is in the NHL as the player drafted 9 picks later by the exact same team, Cade Weber.
right.
So we
Time will
will
tell.
see, but these weren't all guys that we loved watching, and that's
remember the Anthony Honka era?
Anthony Honka.
When Anthony Honka was the thing. You want to talk about defensemen being overrated because of their offense? Holy
Yeah.
smokes, that guy was a forward. That guy, I remember
Yeah.
Anthony Honka. That was a hoot.
You know who's good though? Mikko Kokkonen, his teammate.
Hey, he is rock solid. Actually,
He
I
I
don't mind
like Mikko
Kokkonen at all.
Kokkonen.
Yeah, he is not a bad hockey player at all.
He's better than Yanni Hakanpää.
It's
Bring
entirely
him on
possible.
Team Finland. Let's go. Get
I'll-
Kokkonen and Niemela on Team Finland. Let's do it.
Yeah. Bonsoir. Last time you were on the show, you mentioned that Carbonneau relies a lot on his teammates. Do you think you could expand on that a little more? Yeah, I mean, he's a guy who, to me, is at his best when the puck is given to him in the neutral zone and he takes it from there. Like he's very strong on his feet. He gets around the offensive zone really well. He's got tons of one-on-one skill, but he's not. His pass volumes are low in my experience. He's, a lot of it is just heaving pucks to the middle of the ice in the offensive zone, which is better than not doing that. But there is a lot of like questionable tendencies in his game, but the talent is there for me. I don't know. You were going to say something. I think you were gearing up.
Yeah, I think with Carbonneau, my big thing with him is that he's doing things with intention, like putting the puck to the middle of the ice, ringing it around the boards when he gets into trouble along the boards, because I don't think his board play is all that great. And doing some of these little things, but a lot of his play with his teammates is them getting him in good positions. I think with Carbonneau, it's not often that he's getting them in good positions. And I know he's scoring a lot and he's got 22 assists in 26 games, but he's not a guy that I think is elevating his teammates. He's allowing his teammates to kind of elevate him. And he makes some good plays in the offensive zone. Like you said, when you're constantly throwing the puck to the middle of the ice, you're going to have good things happen. But there's another player that I was watching today who I have ranked significantly lower. And I won't mention his name because he may be coming on game tape soon and I don't want to trash him. But there was so many times where he just threw the puck to the middle of the ice with the hope that someone was there. And I think that's a lot of what Justin Carbonneau does. And it works out in the QMJHL because there's no defenseman around usually. So someone can just kind of swoop in and bang it in or get the rebound and stuff. So I worry about Carbonneau and the way he plays. I thought, especially in the first game of that CHL USA game, he was a little lost, and it is a 1-game sample. And like I already mentioned, I don't value them all that highly for evaluations, but you do see the QMJHL guys kind of adjusting to the pace of the OHL and WHL guys in a game like that. And I thought he was one, at least in the first game, that struggled with it a bit more.
Yeah, that makes sense. But yeah, I mean, I hope that helps. David Phillips asked about Pavel Rudovich. It's a rude question to ask. I don't care. I saw Jackson Jacobson's debut last year. He's unbelievable. Saw that continue through this year. I get that he's small, but he could be a top 5. Yeah, I really like Jackson Jacobson. I thought he was great at the under-17s. Very, very good flashes there out of him. He's a late 2008, so he's a 2027 draft player, but he's looked quite good whenever I've seen him. I don't know, Tony, if you want to expand on that or if we want to keep going here.
You can just move on.
All right. Thoughts on Luke Misselbacher scoring a lot of points this year? I mean, it's good for him. He actually caught my eye last year a couple of times, but I wondered about projecting to the NHL. Like, he's a little small, not the most dynamic, high pace, high skill guy, but it's more than good enough where with some development, I could see him being a good WHLer. Like, does he get drafted this year? I could see it happening potentially. Like, he's not an undraftable asset from last year. He's fun to watch. But I think the NHL is still a bit of ways away, but he's having a great season. Can't take that away from him. But that whole team is.
Boints, baby.
I think he ends up being a guy that now that I've pulled him up, I remember him on Swiss Current. I think he's a guy that probably gets like an AHL deal maybe after he's done his WHL career. But yeah, I don't know if an NHL draft pick is something I'd invest in him, but teams have drafted worse players.
Yeah. Would you take a gamble on Daniil Gutic as an undrafted free agent? Who are some guys you tracked in the past that you would take a gamble on as a free agent now? Daniil Imurzen is probably a guy in the KHL I would put out there. He's really talented. He's grown to be quite a good hockey player. I don't know. I don't know about Gutic. I haven't seen him in forever, but every time I have seen him, he's been kind of fine. I don't know, but it's a hard question to answer right now, and I don't think there are very many. I'm trying to think. I don't know, Tony, if there's anyone from years past who have now become men. Once was a boy, but now I am a man.
Trying to think of people, and I even pulled up my older rankings. I don't know.
Yuri Tihacek.
Yeah.
Tihacek.
Get the boy.
Yeah, I get the boy. Yep. Okay. I hear you say a lot of prospects from the QMJHL are playing against weak competition, but never mention that about prospects that are playing in the Swedish junior, Russian junior, or USHL, which are weaker. I mean, I would disagree. I think the Russian junior league is certainly weaker than the Quebec one. That's not in discussion at all. I mean, we're very outward about, like, when you watch Russian guys, you got to be really careful about the level of competition and what division they're playing in and who their opponents are, because the different, like, the top teams I think could hang in the CHL, but it doesn't take very long for those teams to then just fall apart. I mean, I think a lot. I don't know. I've watched a lot of the Quebec League, and the number of Quebec players in the NHL is declining. Like, that's indisputable. Sweden doesn't seem to be doing the same. You're seeing fewer and fewer Quebec players coming to Hockey Canada events, right? Like, look at the World Junior team this year, right? It's all OHL and WHL except for two guys, and those guys are, almost 20, right? And I would argue
at that.
And I would argue they're bubble players, right? Like, this year, Desnoyers, Zonin, Carbonneau, is that it? Like, of guys that are real difference makers at that level to me, right? Like, in my experience, I could be wrong. I might be missing one.
Remember when Tony started the year up by saying, "Is the Q back?" or something like that? I don't remember what it was, but like
the very next time I came on, I said it's not.
Right?
Yeah, it's awesome.
I retracted my statement.
Like, it's just that
funny.
It's just that, yeah, like, the evidence, the data is not really there. And like, the USHL, by default, it is better. Like, it's a bigger country with fewer teams, and there's still a ton of them playing hockey in that country. Like, the dilution of talent is significantly less. Like, you're basically hoping that in the Quebec and Maritimes region, where there are, I think 50% more teams, you're looking at an entire country of hundreds of millions of people boiling all of their best talent into the USHL, ideally. Whereas in Quebec and the Maritimes, their best talent is being squeezed onto 20 teams. And I don't know. I mean, I just go off of what I see. Obviously, like, there are situations where in Sweden, the breadth of quality between teams is also another factor to keep in mind. And the Russian junior league, no one's disputing that. But I mean, I don't know. There's just a lot of evidence, both in the draft and watching these players and watching this league. Like, all the guys that have been drafted recently from the Quebec League and gone to the Q, like Zach Leroux, I think, is probably the only one who's cracked an NHL roster, and he's psychotic. So that makes sense, right? He plays like he's insane, so he's going to play. But Zach Bolduc is playing in the NHL, but whenever I've seen him play for St. Louis, I haven't really noticed him all that much. He's
not
kind of a guy. right? He hasn't been great. So the evidence is just not there, to be honest. Like there's more and more college guys coming. There's more and more Europeans coming. Russia is a different story, maybe. I don't know, whatever.
Yeah.
Anyway, last question of the night. Does Hockey Canada focus on the U18s or Hlinka performances when picking the U20s? I'm sure they do. Like Harrison Brunick being on the team, that checks out. Summer showcase performances probably factor in, right? This is when they see the guys in person, right? They see them all on a level playing field. It's like, I'm sure there's an aspect of like, you're playing for Hockey Canada, how do you perform vibes to it, right? Like if you don't show up for that tournament, why would they bother putting you on the camp roster for a future tournament if they don't trust you, right? I'm sure it factors in.
At the end of the day, I think there's a reason Matthew Schaefer, as a really late 2007 born player, is at the World Junior Championship camp roster, because he has shown up on the big stage whenever he's been on the big stage. He, like I said, he finds a way to make the flash play when the eyes are on him. And when you go, if you go back, I implore anyone who has the ability to go back and just watch a random Thursday night game or a random Sunday afternoon game of Matthew Schaefer. You're going to be impressed. He's a very good player. He's probably going to play 32 minutes a night, which is crazy. But he's not making those end-to-end rushes every game like he does at these showcase events.
No, he does not.
So it's, the reality is I think he's a bit of a different player, but he has the ability to showcase and show up in those big moments. So I think that's why a guy like that's there. And I think that's why they value the U18s and the Hlinka specifically as much as they do.
Yeah. Well, I think on that note, we can call it a night. Thank you again, Mr. Ferrari, for joining me, and Mr. Jadaro again for helping out here. It's been a joy. Tony, you will be back in 2 weeks. We're going to do a big old ranking show. It's going to be a lot of fun. In the meantime, we've got video room videos coming out over the course of this week. We've got 3 recorded. So those are going to be coming out over the next little while. So definitely check those out.
Gonna do a power rankings on Friday because
we're gonna do
a Calder one because we don't have any game tape interview.
We don't have game tape for this week,
but we'll hopefully get one back up for next week on the Friday, and I'll get back to editing for 4 days at a time on it. Yeah, and I'm trying to think. I mean, so if you're a subscriber to the website, you'll get early access to the written up rankings for my work. If you're a partner subscriber, you get live access to see them as they shift, which they do often because that's the way it works. I remember having access to that when I didn't run the show with Will.
Right.
And anytime Will would do any sort of movement in his list, I'd be like, oh, why'd he move him? I'm going to go watch him now. Because if Will thinks it must be true.
Yes, of course. If I do it, it's true. And if someone else does it and it works, they're lying. And it's luck. Yeah, that's exactly it. That's how this all works. Easy peasy.
I can't wait to compare our rankings in 2 weeks.
I mean, we did this a little bit like a month ago, I remember, and both of us were kind of like, oh, but I don't know, maybe we'll cross over a little bit more now and sort of kumbaya around the campfire a little and go, okay, well, maybe we can just
stay away from Tony's rankings on that day. I want it to be
also don't release them the day of the show hours in advance, because that happened before.
No, well, he has to. He has to.
Oh, you're going. Oh, right, he has to. Okay, so I will.
I have another job, Will.
That's true. You have another job. The other guy did not have an excuse for
Sam
doing
just
that.
released it.
Yeah,
Sam just was
put him out
on vibes.
Sammy.
Sam just said, F it, and just did it the day before. I'm like, Sam, you know you were supposed to wait. Oh, back is what he said back to me. Yep. That sounds about right.
Mine will be released probably at noon that day, so you can wait 8 hours to look at them, Will.
Yeah. Yes, I can. I can do that. It'll be really hard because as soon as I see rankings, I need to put them in my database, but I'll let it hang. I'll let it
I'll
sit.
Block you on Twitter.
Yeah, there we go. Block me on Twitter and mute me on Blue Sky or whatever, and then I'll never see it. Yeah, there we go. Perfect. All right. Well, on that note, I think we're going to take off. Thanks for joining us again. Check all the links in the description for all of our fun sponsors and everything. You can help with the show in a variety of different ways down there. Again, Scouching subscription gets you access to all of our stuff early. and plenty of other cool stuff you can check out there. So let's get out of here, fellas. Thanks again. This was a good time, and we'll see you on another time.
Leafs for Cup. We beat the Blackhawks finally. We're not on a 2-game losing streak against them anymore.
Sweet. You beat Jason Dickinson.
Yes, they did. Go Leafs, go. Good night.